And we're now officially live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Lore Ramblings on the Scum channel. It's been a bit of a hiatus. I'm Adam.
And I'm Tech Priest, and we're finally going to finish off the last of the 5 classic Battletech manuals. These
Oh,
are
come
the
on! It
ones from...
wasn't like we were holding off on it. This was by fan. This was actually by fan request.
Yes, it
Seriously,
was.
a vast majority of our Discord, which it's in the link. It's in the link in the description. Vast majority of them voted for this. So, hey,
And
this is for you
I don't
guys.
blame them. It is a fun setting. It is the last one that we had to get out. We still have to get through the rest of Dark Eras, and then I have no idea what we do next, honestly, but...
That's saying nothing. Remember, I have an entirely other series people just remembered called Autistic Analysis. Do you know how many 3.5 supplement books created classes?
Oh, God. Oh, God.
Yeah. But we're not talking about D&D classes, although I'm tempted to do Book of Exalted Deeds and Vile Darkness, kind of back to back for that one. We'll get into that later. Instead, we're going to talk about the Lyran Commonwealth, aka House Steiner, aka the least interesting of all of the book covers.
It's a fist.
Yeah, the mailed fist. Rifts, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. I mean, there's been suggestions for all of that.
I mean, Rifts could be fun, but that's just because Rifts is Rifts.
But that's its own
And
thing. Now we're talking about House Steiner. Which, yeah, we're going German and I think partially Scottish, right?
German, Scottish, and of all things, Italian.
Well, that would explain the military incompetence.
It also explains from the names. But yes, the Lyrans are kind of in an interesting situation when it comes to the general nature of the successor states. Is that the Lyrans are without a doubt the most economically powerful, and they have one of the largest militaries. The problem is that the Lyrans are complete fucking jokes when it comes to
Lyran
actually
Social
competent.
Generals. Is that what they're called,
When it,
Coyote?
social generals is a term that's applied to them because it's basically military ranks given out to political, uh, for political reasons.
You know, one of the more interesting. There's a lot of examples of it, but my favorite still has to go to the United States Navy for the Big Gun Club. That's actually it was an old boys group in the United States Navy, especially during the interwar period, that essentially advocated for the battleships being the mistresses of the fleet. And one of their biggest disasters, in my opinion, was their intentional rigging of war games to make submarines look less effective than they actually were. I'm not kidding. One
Yes,
of the things they
they
often did was they claimed kills when there's no fucking way that the death charges would have hit them at that depth. So it made the submarine captains during World War II for the Americans initially a little overly cautious.
it's also that the torpedoes didn't fucking work
That
because
wasn't the big
Bjord
that was
cheaped out.
not the big club's fault. Now you can blame Bjord for the decision to keep the 30-06 rather than just take a really good Belgian gun.
God damn. I could rant for hours about the M14 and why it was a piece of shit from the start. That boomers only like because it's like a Garand with a detachable magazine. Well, they made a Garand with a detachable magazine, and they decided to trial it, and the U.S. Army went, "No,
you
give
know,
us the N block."
I'll be honest. I kind of prefer the. If I want an old retro gun, I'd probably go with the French Mas 49.
Oh yeah, no, the French Moss 49 is aesthetically pleasing. I also like the FN 49 or 48, whichever it is, which was the other semi-automatic rifle that FN came out with around this time. It was a full
Oh yeah,
cartridge.
the one that was basically thrown out the window because it wasn't as good, and it led to the
Yeah,
better
because
gun.
the FAL was just a better gun overall. Yeah. Um. Uh, Anyway, back to this. So,
Oh no.
as you
Before
can,
we go, did this come out before 40K? Yes, it did.
yes, it did.
Because Warhammer
This actually,
Fantasy, Warhammer Fantasy came out before this, but 40K came out during the very late 80s or early 90s. So technically,
Battle.
if you really want to get into the weeds, the Crimson Fists are stealing House Steiner's banner and calling it their chapter house logo.
It's also that there's a lot of similarities in early BattleTech in terms of how the nature of technology was viewed compared to the Adeptus Mechanicus of 40K. They diverged from it eventually, but Comstar is very much in the same nature as the Adeptus Mechanicus.
If you're wondering
Um,
why, I actually have thought about this. Here is the blue curtain segment of this video. I know we're already in the weeds and we've not even started, but the blue curtains video. At this time, technology is rapidly progressing. Moore's law, the concept of computers developing twice as much processing power each year, was becoming a thing. Machinery was getting massively more complex. Transistors have allowed things to shrink. And because of that, the bar to actually build these things became higher and higher and higher as you had to know more and more about how to assemble and build these things to work and to program and to machine code them, right?
right.
Because of that, in a way, I feel like the reason we've gotten tech cultists during the 80s was because of that realization that these are the first line to modern civilization. If they fucking go, we go at best back to the 19th century.
Yeah, like the nature of technology. Also, Canticle for Leibowitz is an incredibly influential work in this era, from post-apocalyptic style things to just good writing. I highly recommend just reading it. It's not very long.
Ah,
But right, the thing about it is that we talk about Comstar as these quasi-technical fanatics and all that, and that's kind of what they are in the early days of BattleTech. But it's also very clear that they're political players right from the get-go, because they're the ones that are talking about all this, and they're giving you the whole thing about uh the fact of the matter is that there's fallibility, and there's they basically talk about how the Comstar interacts with all the successor states, which is important because, as we've mentioned before, Comstar is the only thing that allows intergalactic communication to work.
yeah,
Like
without
these,
that, the anything more advanced than a couple star systems is impossible.
not necessarily impossible, it becomes unwieldy because of how fast and light travel works in BattleTech, which is that every time you jump, you require about 3 to 7 days to recharge your jump drive to go into system, and inter-system travel, so from your jump point to your planet, could take a few days too. So for example, traveling across the inner sphere could take like a year of real time of you jumping from system to system and recharging. And if you wanted to make pit stops along the way, that'd take more time.
So you need your space infrastructure,
Yes.
which
So
Comstar is the only group that knows how to actually keep that going.
they're one of the few groups that knows how to make new jump ships and all that. They actually sit on some of the largest geranium mines, which is a necessary component to make jump ships. The KF drive requires basically a lot of rare earth metals and weird components that they don't go too far into because
Unobtainium. It's the unobtainium.
it's unobtainium. Yeah, basically. the it's very valuable, but it's also that because Comstar controls faster than light travel, not faster than light travel, faster than light communication, they
And that's
control
the
the
big
political
thing.
levers of everything. Yeah.
And that's the big thing. What's that tech called? I'm just going to call it subspace communication.
Hyper pulse generators.
Because they control that, that's the only reason you can
H
actually administer anything worth a shit.
the HPG network. Now you can. That's why feudalism came back, is because you needed to have relatively autonomous planetary governments to handle shit, because they couldn't always take orders from the center. And it's also why early colonization efforts were so hard. Um, But that's kind of getting ahead of ourselves,
Oh
because
yeah,
then we
but yeah, this is the best way to describe it is the reason we're talking so much about Comstar is all of the books are written from their point of view, studying the major houses of the inner sphere, the major
I
bodies of the inner sphere.
yeah, I don't think we got to that this point. Now we can kind of skip ahead a bit because it's a lot of the stuff that we covered in every
Yep,
other one
last
of like
bastion of knowledge and wisdom. Yep, the first circuit's completed the series of books. This might be one of the other first ones besides the Federated Suns, actually, because of the opener.
yeah. I think that this is the last one of the series that they did.
Which is funny because it reads like this might have been one of the first ones they did. Like the
Yeah,
first three paragraphs, I'm just skimming them. By the way, chat, can you see the book? I might have accidentally forgotten to press the hotkey. I'm not on my A game. You can feel free to type yes or no. I'm just going to explain that I think that this was probably the first book written, or at least the opener for this was written first, and
I
then...
can see it on the stream, so we're good.
Okay, we good. We good, chat. Just making sure. So, I like this little... Oh, look at the egg. The floating egg.
Yep, that's a dropship.
No, that's an egg. That's egg. It's tied to a tether. Aw. Because of the line work, it looks like it's wrapped around the top of the dropship. It looks like an egg.
Yeah.
Thanks, chat. It's good to know. I just,
Yeah,
Oh, the Commonwealth history provides a valuable lesson in the use of compromise. Because, as the title card kind of hints, the way that nations tended to form very differently depending on what side of the sphere you were on. If you were spinward, you did it through blood. If it was anti-spinward,
the
trade.
trade was the king. Yeah, Spinward was like just a fucking bloodbath. Just let's see, it's the Lyrans, it's not the Lyrans, it's the Combine, it's the Federated Suns, it's the
Yep,
Capellans,
and Capellans.
it's all that. It's fucking
Meanwhile, you got
awful.
the Free Worlds, Steiner, and Rosselhog, actually.
Rosselhog actually kind of is founded in blood too, because they got taken over by the Draconis Combine.
True.
Remember? So the real kind of kicker here, though, is that we get the talk about Lyrans are not exactly the most well managed political entity.
Yeah, they're founded by compromise in their own description. Also, that's a very horrifying... That's not a woman's face.
I know, right? I love early Battletech art because it's either really good or like, oh god.
So we have, I'd say, I don't know, 20 to 30-year-old body, 80s flare shoulders. That's 80s
Yeah.
flare.
It's 80s flair. I have to admit that the Battletech fashion of this era is fucking.
I don't know, Imsit.
It's unique. It's unique. I'll give it that.
I'm going to say Katrina. This is not Katrina's real face. This is actually just a mask she has. Like, notice the way her hands holding the horrifying. It looks like. Oh God,
It looks like a mask.
Is that Eisenhower in lipstick? Is that Dwight D. Eisenhower in lipstick?
Oh wow!
I like Ike, but I wouldn't put lipstick on him. He'd look like a pig.
Oh god! But yeah, the opening quotes are actually pretty fun for the introduction as well.
But again, I have to emphasize those shoulder flares. Very
the
clearly
shoulder flares
business
are very 80s.
blazer.
Yeah.
The backward look behind the assurance of recorded history. The backward half look over the shoulder towards the primitive terror.
And then the other one, you have to question the sanity of anyone who claims that history is filled with honor and moral deeds. Either the man is a lunatic or is too stupid to understand what historians throughout the ages have been trying to say.
I would have added a third option, delusional.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, that's lunatic. Yeah.
Yeah, this would be in the 3020s. So this is maybe Katrina at 40, at which point she looks like she's 80.
Well, like I said, she is wearing a hyper-realistic president's mask, like she's about to rob a bank.
Yeah. In any case,
she looks like she's about to rob a bank. Like she looks like a Payday 2 character's model.
Oh god, it's Uh, just Razormine playing in the background as you've got like an Atlas pulling on a fucking clown mask.
I'm just envisioning Payday 2, but with Battlemechs, and it's stupid.
That'd be amazing. I would play that game. I
Yeah.
would play a I would 100% play a game where you're just a group of like mercenaries that are trying to do like a gigantic bank heist on Solaris using mechs. That'd be fantastic. But anyway, we'll get to Solaris actually in this book finally. Which is because it is in the Commonwealth. But right, the introduction bit is like, oh, you're right, the Lyrans and all that. Uh, the Commonwealth lost a lot of all that. The fact of the matter is that the the Steiner family is the most important family. Blah blah blah.
Yep.
The main thing though is that the Steiners have pursued prosperity above power most of the time.
Yeah, because the Lyran Commonwealth, just due to where they settled, they hold the most resource-rich planets in known space at the moment.
Yes, they do. Namely, they hold one of the most important strategical assets in the entire inner sphere, which is Hesperus 2.
And on top of that, what they often do is they don't focus on war, they actually focus on rebuilding after war.
Yeah,
So
they've
rather than
been.
prop up their army, they've gone the British route, which is actually, if you're curious, I looked into this. If the fall of France didn't happen, the British would have still committed to mass industrialization and mechanization, and that's what how Steiner does too. They are focusing on building the industry so that they can build the technology. The army can be cleared of dead wood during war. Until then, we got to make sure it's the most mechanized and powerful one we got. At least that's kind of the mindset I'm getting from this. But even despite that, the Commonwealth lost a lot of technology due to all the nukes and the
Yeah, like
destruction of space
everybody got
fleets.
fucked up by all the nukes. Like that's just kind of the nature of the warfare of this time. You're gonna get nuked.
The rate of decline has been slower, so it's still declining, but it's slower here.
Yeah, it's one of those cases where there's. I have to say this.
This is early
This
in
is
the
very
books.
this is very early BattleTech. Like the decline of Star League. Like everybody goes, oh yeah, Star League's kind of wonky, but also that Star League has this sort of how do I put it? Like they talk a lot about how the succession wars go down and destroy a lot of shit, and it's like yeah they do, but they also don't. They haven't really fluffed out 100% what actually happened during the succession
Like the
wars.
only thing we know is that they lost a little bit of material science, so their alloys
They
are a
lost a
little
lot of
heavier.
material
Well,
science
their alloys
actually.
are heavier. They lost the ability. They lost a lot of micro sizing stuff, so that's why you can't cram heat sinks on them so much.
They lost a lot of tech, but it's not
It's
the
not
very
critical though, if you think about it.
yeah, like the difference is in how much critical tech was lost, which
Not a lot.
not a lot actually.
I think the
In
only thing was was the infrastructure for large naval vessels, space naval, I should say.
yeah, it used to be that it was like almost everything, like including medical tech, got lost, and eventually they sort of backed off on that. Where there's some worlds where it went that bad, where like there's entirely new languages that have developed over the 100 years of isolation from the rest of the sphere and all this other crazy shit. They've kind of gone away from that in more modern BattleTech to like no, there's enough trade and there's enough people jumping around that if your system wasn't forgotten about or getting really fucked up by just
All the
the nature
wars.
of what it was, like
If you're
you
not a
probably
border,
had.
if you're not on a border, like you're not on, say, a border between two powers that fight a lot, or if you're not in the outermost part of the inner sphere, you know, that expanded space area.
Yeah, your tech loss wasn't as bad.
But in this case, the Lyrans, they've lost less than most, mainly because they were able to build business and keep expectations within margin. So their economy wasn't destroyed due to any of the succession wars. damaged but not crippled.
Right. There's a lot of other kind of aspects of the how would I put it?
Oh, hey, they
The
talk about currency. That's
Yes, they do.
I'm not.
All the houses have their own internal currency. It's just that the standard is ran by Comstar, which is the C bill, which is what everybody else uses because it's a measure of how long a communication you can actually launch.
This actually reminds me of another interesting concept. Ever heard of the term rocket buck?
No, I actually have not.
Okay, the concept of rocket buck is you price everything set to, I believe, when the first serious rocket systems were designed by it could either be NASA itself or the prior military testing. You set it to a
Right.
certain year in the 50s, and that becomes your rocket buck standard, which allows you to basically account for inflation purposes so that you know exactly what the price tag of something is because it's all set to the same standards. There's no, oh, well, this costs 8 trillion to make, not 8 trillion, 80 billion to make, but if you actually look, originally it only cost like 50 billion. Like, it's a way to avoid inflation calculation. And when I think of C-bills, that kind of reminds me of the same thing. That's your standard, so you know how good the economy is. And in this case, Steiner's, since they're mostly German, I'd probably say they're called marks.
I'd actually they'll probably
Or
tell you what they're
Scottish.
called.
They could be
I
whatever
can't
Scottish
I can't
currency
I
is.
can't remember what they're actually called.
Guilder? They could be
Uh,
called Guilder.
I think they're called guilds. Gilder. I could be wrong. I wrote something for Battletech once that involved a character actually using house bills. I should remember this, but I don't, and I feel really bad about that.
I'm sorry. It's just I always find it fun when people go into a little bit about currency. It's always interesting because that means they put a lot more thought into the internal economy.
Yeah, the internal economy of the Commonwealth is very much part of its,
Well,
much like
it's
the Free
both
Worlds League.
internal.
It's what it's
It's
built on.
Yeah, it's internal but also external. It's not like the Capellans, which it's very centrally planned.
Yeah, if you need to get to like where things actually start happening, it'd be on page 10.
More so, Dawn of the New Age. We don't really need to read this. This is
We really don't
basically,
need to go through this. This is all the basic shit that we see in
yep.
every other BattleTech book.
Effectively, it's just blah blah blah, colonization, blah blah blah. The old Terran Alliance ate shit, blah blah blah.
All right. So basically, the summary is that there's three entities that decide that it'd be best to join together rather than be kind of in a shitty position.
The first
Which
being Ian
is
McKeeston, which is the Scots part.
which is Sky. Then there's Marsden, who's the one from what would
Oh no, they
be
go into detail about McKeeston himself. I'm getting strong Ismay vibes from White Star Line, actually, reading him. Not the guy who tragically died, but like the Ismays when they bought White Star. Similar kind of merchant
yeah.
captain. Oh, there we go, Marsden. Here we go. Marsden was one of his advisors for his Great Trade Fleet. And Marsden promptly quit the company. They'd fallen out
Yeah.
either over money, but it's possible Marsden was just trying to make money on his own terms. So Sky Traders, then Donegal Freights and Goods. So these ones started as Zaibatsus. It's actually similar to the group that ran things before House Korea overthrew them.
Yes. The fact of the matter is that the Tamar Pact is basically the ones that have always been against Kurita because they're on the front line with them. Tamar then proposes this idea of the Archons, which is that we're going to be modeling our stuff after the ancient Greek city-states, and then they propose the symbol of the Commonwealth to be a three-stringed, lyre or a trident.
Yep. Basically, what happened was the original big trade fleet was Sky Traders, which
Yes.
didn't actually own planets at the time. None of them. I'll have to point that out. None of them owned planets. They were just large corporations.
Right.
Sky Traders. Then you had Donegal Freights, and the only one that might have had land or controlled a planet were the Tamars, which
It was
actually
Tamar,
did
which controlled Tamar.
control. Well, they controlled Tamar, Fatima, Nox, and Suktu.
Yeah, they're actually Pakistani, if I remember correctly.
Yep,
I could be wrong.
Pakistani who immigrated to America at one point. So
Yeah,
a blend of both cultures.
yeah. In any case,
The
they
three
they
band together and create a pact to basically fight bandits.
yes, and they are recognized by the Terran hegemony. By the way,
Terran Alliance. Yep.
well, Terran hegemony in 2341.
Yeah, the Terran Alliance finally fell apart in 2314.
Yes, they did fall apart in 2314, but they were recognized officially by the hegemony about 30 years later,
Uh
which is the successor state to the alliance.
oh, why Katrina has the face of an old man? The generals, don't forget them. I mean, they don't help.
Yeah, no.
From
And
IMSA.
then
So the origins of the Lions where they were space truckers?
yeah,
More like White Star or Cunard Line, where they make a
yeah,
lot of money selling goods and shipping passengers and immigrants. Like, yeah,
yeah.
they were also space truckers, but they also dealt a lot with just trade, trade, trade,
Trade,
trade.
trade, 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 trade.
The
Long haul,
smell
all
was
that.
intolerable on Steiner's in space.
But
The
yes,
processing room.
they go through the talk about how the fact of the matter is that the logistics of governing this massive state is fucking awful.
Oh, this is how the
Um,
Steiners first came to be.
yes,
Just some like Gunther Ludwig Steiner going to Donegal essentially to be hired as a data manager.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. That's how they got started. In the Commonwealth. But yes, so basically Archons would need to have some other issues. The problem is that they couldn't figure out who the leader Archon would be. And then there was more arguments. And there's the fact is that there's anti-government movements because
Yep, because there were talks of mergers for that. I'm looking here. Well,
yeah,
first off, the other three defensive pacts that were okayed were the Crucis Pact and Free Worlds League, from what I understand.
yes. Because they were recognizable and rather simple.
Yep. Free Worlds League being eventually the House Merrick. Crucis Pact is the nucleus of House Davian, or the Federated Sons. And very quickly, you had the Draconis Combine form after murdering the equivalent of the Arkan League here.
Yeah.
By the end, they were talking about merging, but as you mentioned, they couldn't quite figure out who would be the main big guy, because you can't just have three big guys. They're going to argue all the time. You need one big guy and two almost as big guys to tell the big guy no.
Right.
They instead, rather than build a government, built an economic plan.
Yeah. Governing is hard. What a shock.
They just start recreating ancient Greeks, which
Yeah, I know.
Actually, the Tamar's doing that isn't entirely out of the blue. If you're going with the kind of the American vibe, because we kind of revived a lot
Yeah.
of neoclassical stuff.
I think there was a proposal to call the High Office the Archon at one point. I wouldn't be surprised.
McKiston heartily agreed with the state seal. 'Tis a good name. Showing to all we three merged our realms for a common good. You two of you don't have realms. You're fucking merchants. You sell
they own
product.
They own planets. Okay.
Did they own planets by this point?
Yeah, they would have. They basically own planets by this point.
Oh yeah, when Terra ate shit. That's where they began getting planets.
Yeah, that's when they managed to get planets, because basically these trade alliances basically became the de facto governments. Because they were the only ones that could actually supply anything to anyone, and the only way that you could communicate was through these big shipping companies. So they basically had the monopoly on everything they needed to be a government.
So as opposed to being an army with a state, this is a company with a state.
Yes. You could say that they literally start out with as companies as states and then migrate over to being actual states.
Independence Day.
Yeah. So they
A loaf of bread that cost $5 last week now costs $54 after the government's devaluation.
Yeah, tensions. Yeah, the Kelswa family is the one that founded Tamar. Is the one that's in charge of the Tamar Pact, if I remember correctly. Anyway, so the Draconis Combine basically ends up threatening the whole shebang with
the Pact's continued participation in the Commonwealth, which is characterized as a pack of ravenous wolves feasting on the carcasses of our labor.
Yeah. The Tamar Pact has kind of always been a little bit up there.
But yeah,
They're
now we
actually
know
back.
the Lyran Commonwealth is because they decided to literally put a harp as their original logo.
Yes, it's actually interesting. The Tamar Pact is back in modern Battletech in the Ilkhanate cycle. It's one of the because the Tamar, a lot of the worlds that were in the Tamar Pact were actually part of the clan invasion and got taken away. So once the clans moved out, the fact of the matter was that the Lyrans weren't looking very hot, so there was some successionist movements that managed to actually take power and restore a Tamar Pact and start fighting it out with the remnant clan forces and the main government. Which, fun.
I imagine their lives are a lot more shit than they were.
Oh yeah, for sure. But it was already pretty shit because the clans had come in and raided the fuck out of them for the last 5 decades, which is why they were willing to secede, because it's like, you guys haven't done shit for us.
Because idiot ball.
Yeah.
That's my biggest problem with the setting is you just kind of have to ignore the idiot balls.
The Mech Warrior Dark Ages idiot ball is very awful.
So you either ignore it or you just kind of go with what's current.
Or either you ignore it or you just play Jihad Era, which Jihad Era has a lot of idiot balls, but it's like, fuck it. We're just going, if you're playing Jihad Era, you're playing it because it's a fucking bloodbath of chaos.
So anyway, chaos and corruption. Yeah, basically, as soon as they realized they had to manage planets, oh fuck,
how do we do this?
The 3 leaders couldn't even figure out how to split it. It took over. Wait, when was it? 5 years. It took over 5 years. No, actually 7 years.
It took 7 years to sort out how do we actually do the whole Archon thing.
I mean, Lord forbid you just 3 by 3 by 3.
Well, you see, the problem with that is that one of those 3 is going to be the head Archon, and we can't just have that always be in one location.
You could just do what the Skaven did and make a fake 10th chair that no one sits on. That's what the Skaven did. And they're rat people. They're parodies of the Italians. I'm not even kidding. The Skaven are literally a parody of the parody Italians. like their actual, like if you read it, they go into details on their behaviors are just massive over stereotyping of the Tylean and Estalian mindset, with the obsession over plots, the self-aggrandizing nature of the Estalians, and the mad insanity of the Tylean invention, since they're the ones that invented the steam tank.
I've just got this image of Queek Headtaker doing the aggressively Italian hand gestures.
Do that, but also his Skaven voice. All Skaven voices should sound as they do, but with an Italian accent.
No, they've got that Brooklyn accent. Hey, I'm walking here.
Hey, I walk go here, man thing. I walk go here, man thing.
I'm just imagining a rat ogre and a wife beater now, with his hair slicked back.
I should one day I should regale the chat about our great homebrew concept of a clan of Skaven that's based off of the Italian fascist movement with their leader Big Chis.
I mean, we're already on a diversion, so just go for it. Just go for it.
So, after the discovery that the Skaven are just Italian stereotypes, I went, well, let's since they're insane and kind of incompetent, let's make an let's make a Mussolini equivalent. Hence, Big Chis, which is
Mussolini.
No, Big Chis.
Just call them
Big Chis, the head. He's called Big Cheese because if you actually spell it out, it almost sounds like big cheese. Hence the name.
Oh God.
Unlike other Skaven, he plans to do something called creating the future beyond cult, where he tries to espouse futurism and build a basic culture for the rats. and, and build a giant slave den to build up a slightly less large Skaven slave population so that he's even more beloved. He is currently in a death war with the Gamorkian tribes around Morcane under their leader, the war boss Rasta Fasta. Which, yes, is the name, is a shitpost on Rastafari, aka Haile Selassie.
Okay.
What do you think of Big Cheese and his clan headquarters, which has a version of his head with the word "yes, yes" behind it, etched in repeatedly in Quinkish?
God damn it!
What do you think of Big Cheese?
If you ever run a Warhammer Fantasy game, I want to go there as the weird ambassador to like have to talk to these weird rat people, because that sounds like a hilarious look at like the societies.
Also, if you're wondering, a couple other things they have is they have their own twisted version of the steam tank called the Warp Fire tank. It'll explode randomly at any point. But that's why they're scary. They managed to create a man-thing equivalent to the steam tank. It is much more unreliable, but
it's much worse in every single way.
Yeah, but it works.
Just like Italian tanks.
They also have their own crappy version of a gyrocopter that they use to fling warp dust at the orcs.
Pocket sand.
Oh, before we get back, fun fact: did you know that in the lands of Nippon they worship Orange Simca, which is a soda brand? Their religion is literally named after soda brands like Simca and Vimto. I'm not kidding.
All right.
The samurai clans are all named after car companies too.
Okay. So GW being cheeky bastards aside.
All right, how's Steiner? Well, chaos and corruption still.
Yeah, so it's an economic roller coaster. There's a military
No, it's not an
buildup.
economic roller coaster. It's a roller coaster into your grave.
The Archon treasurer attempted suicide 3 days before the meeting, and it took 25 years to sort out the economic issues.
He ended himself in Minecraft.
He tried to. He attempted suicide. Somebody just caught him before he could jump off as he's screaming about the spreadsheets.
Oh, it's because each of these planets had their own currency, which is a pain, because you have to actually peg what each currency was. I can see why.
Yes. So you had to
each
peg
have
all
their own
of them.
tax laws. I mean, the ones that managed them at all, which, let's be fair, 2 of them didn't. Only the Tamar Pact ever kind of ran things. So they have to come up with their own economic laws and taxes. And they have to find a way to avoid redundancy, because each planet has its own industries, which essentially are repeated in all other 2 planets. Like war and defense, you got to figure out which contractors you got to keep and which ones you got to integrate and remove the redundancies for. And there's a couple dozen of these planets.
Then finally you get a man to be proud of, which is Robert Marsden, who's finally also known as the Crusher. Mostly because he blackmails all the other Archons. He's able to he strips them all of power, declares himself to be the King Archon with sole source of power, and basically takes over and institutes a sort of a senate.
He's ambivalent. Yeah, people are ambivalent on him. He's the original Commonwealth patriot.
But he's also known as being cold-blooded as fuck.
Yeah, and he's the one that took a financially exploding country and made it something.
He stabilized.
It didn't help how Korea was kicking their teeth in.
Yes, so he basically sentenced the other 8 Archons to life imprisonment, and then gave out like a ultimatum to all the worlds of saying, yeah, here's all your responsibilities, and here's all you have to say. So the Estates General was basically a parliament,
Wait,
and
this
it
was
still
written
is.
last, right?
Yes, it's similar to the. I think it was written
This
last,
is the Kurita. This is just the Kurita guy, but not Japanese.
and not evil,
Yeah.
because
How
he immediately creates
lazy.
an actual. He actually creates an. The Estates Journal actually has a good amount of power. Like it is not just a rubber stamp for the Archon.
He made his
The
move after more fruitless meetings of the Archon. He stayed behind while the others were en route to their homeworld. When they were sure they were too far away to be able to react, he sent a message labeling giving out all their blackmail at once.
Yeah, strips them their powers, declares himself the King Archon, and funds the estate generals in order to salvage the situation. Then he revitalizes everything, uses a bunch of contracts with the inner sphere militaries, like the hegemony, which actually continued for a long time because he was able to get a lot of contract data that would eventually lead to the Lyrans being one of the first to get Battlemech tech.
He also wrote the Articles of Acceptance, which was very controversial for the time.
Yeah, he was then assassinated after a disastrous military campaign.
The Age of War, yeah?
Yeah.
Yep, 15 years, revitalized the economy, people are doing great. Greatly expanding its own army. Oh, here's the beginning of when we mention Italians. Here's a bit of nods, and also yes, Imsit, that was an Ethiopian war reference. Big Chiss is warring with Rastafasta over the ruins of Morcaine. Those soldiers who shown loyalty to Robert, though, had become ranking officers in the military. So yeah, hire those that are loyal, not those that are good. At least Joseph Stalin had a habit of liking people who are loyal to him, but not sycophants. Fun fact: did you know that he was likely never going to actually ever get rid of Zhukov? Because he knew he was loyal beyond measure. Yeah, he told him he was an idiot at times, but at no point did he think he was ever going to be betrayed by him. He liked people that knew what to do. He just wanted to make sure they were loyal to him in every way. Unlike Robert here, who just put his minions in charge. Yep, best equipped, supplied. Enough resources to experiment, which creates the Coventry Science Experiment area. His haven from the nonsense of politics. That's Robert's thoughts on running a country. He then, because oh god, they're just ripping off the the Ottomans when they took, I believe it
Yeah.
was Cyprus.
Yeah.
It was either Cyprus or Rhodes, where basically the Sultan was like, I want to drink the wine there. They struggled to take the island, but they did eventually. I'm not even kidding. That's like one of the last great expansions of the Ottomans was a drunken caliph, because the Ottoman Sultan was also the caliph of the Ummah. Wanted an island so he could indulge in his alcoholism some more.
Yeah. And he was found dead. Probably murdered. No one says so.
Because 10 of his own regiments tried to take the planet because he said this, and they were so sycophantic. They're like, he'll promote us if we do it.
Yeah. And the military blames him for the disaster, despite them doing it first. So this is where the social generals thing comes out. Basically, the part of the reason for this is because the amount of worlds that are suddenly in here, and they have all their own like social customs and titles and things
How
like that. And
convenient
you've got to
they did Hamlet.
yeah
Sorry.
they have to standardize it. So the social general was basically just a way to say that you were important.
Yeah,
And
basically the social generals were literally just We're three completely different cultures from two different shipping companies and a planet run by Pakistani Americans.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to, because that's a big difference, because you're dealing with different faiths. You're dealing with different cultural norms. For example, don't shake with your left hand. That's unclean. Don't show the bottom of your feet. That is an insult. That's just for the Tamar, by the way.
Yeah.
There's similar little slights and politeness that you have to do in both German and Scottish culture too, even if it's a little more standard for the Western world, I should say. So the social generals were mainly just a way to try to get the generals to actually talk with each other and learn from each other. But then it just became a good old boys club. Oh, and they can pass the honor on to their offspring. That was
won't have
that
a
Robert
problem
Marsden?
whatsoever. Might have been Marsden.
It feels like it because at the same time, the army was expanded from his sycophants, remember?
Yes.
I feel like this is the consequence of Marsden effectively wanting an absolutely loyal military.
Yes. Speaking of which, the next leader of the Commonwealth is Marsden's younger brother, Alistair. Then results in a bunch of fighting, blah, blah, blah. And then finally the Steiners get into play because of the wife of Alistair Marsden.
Yeah, because Alistair, he didn't really want it. The military may have chosen him, but yeah.
I mean, he wasn't a bad leader by any means.
He also is more of an economic guy than anything else.
Yeah.
Yep, build up. Then Kurita, obviously, again.
Does
as they
Kurita
always
things.
do.
Yeah.
I mean, the LCAF practiced Drax Wave style tactics, but with stuff that will crush you house by weight alone.
Yeah, they kind of do.
I actually have the thought that because of the nukenings, any competent generalship was usually in their navy.
Well, that's the thing. They actually have one of the most respected military schools in the Inner Sphere, which is the Tharkat Academy. It's the Nagel Ring, basically, is what it's called. It's just that well, it's as much a political appointment to go there as it is anything else. So people who
He had to
necessarily,
fire his own army. He had to fire all of his generals.
yeah, he did.
And despite not being a military man at all, having no training, no understanding of, well, maybe the barest understanding of tactics and logistics, just because of his time as a businessman, a fucking a fucking space trucker ran in the army better than their own generals did.
Yeah.
Oh, that's delicious.
Yep. And he moves the capital to Tharkad, I think, as well.
Yep, to Tharkad.
Because Arcturus was
To
too
the
vulnerable.
Arctic homeworld. So it's one of those. That's another thing I like about
it's a cold
Battletech.
planet, yeah.
No, that's what I like about Battletech. The worlds they go into detail a little bit. All of them sound like garbage.
Yeah, the storm, expected temperatures of somewhere comfortable between negative 35 degrees Celsius and negative 30.
Is this summer? Please tell me that's the summer temperatures.
I don't think that's summer temperatures.
It might be.
They do a profile on Tharkad. Hold on. Sarna.net, if you have any interest in Battletech, Sarna.net is one of the best wikis ever made. I can give you the climate data for Tharkad pretty fast.
Yep, as you do it, I'll just quickly go into detail.
Equatorial temperature is 20 degrees Celsius with 80% surface water.
That's actually surprisingly warm.
That's relatively warm. The standard breathable, a 1.1 surface gravity.
A little heavier, but not too bad.
Yeah, a single moon, which is pretty nice. And the highest native life was basic mammals. Population in 3079, 6 billion, 6.8 billion.
That's well populated by Battletech standards.
It's pretty well populated. It actually was. It has a neat little flag too, which we'll probably see eventually.
Oh, hey, Coyote says that Tharkad's going through an ice age. Okay, that would explain it.
Yeah,
Just going through an ice age period.
yeah, just naturally a cold planet right now.
Anyway, Alistair had an ingenious giga brain moment. Oh yeah, it's big brain time.
Big brain time. They're gonna launch the second invasion. Is gonna link up with the first, and so his idea is he gathers all of his reserves, figures out where they're gonna launch it from, and just attacks that place. Complete success. They weren't expecting it. Victory.
Also, the first Steiner. Because the Marsden family as founders, their affection and animosity goes to the Steiner because of Catherine Steiner.
Yes, because she was the wife of Alistair. They met in 2399, where she was giving a lecture. They basically had an affair, had a lot of common interests. They married. The marriage didn't last very long. His wife got pregnant, gave birth. He was killed the next year. And she had a fun eulogy where she basically goes and kind of changed her son and her name back to Steiner and said that I'm becoming Archon.
Yep.
And everybody kind of goes along with it.
I will say Catherine looks a lot less ugly than her descendant.
Yeah.
Still, that's a strong jaw. I guess the Steiner family tends towards strong jaws.
Yeah. Well, they have to have strong jaws because they have to, they have to be Chads to kill clanners,
They also have to yell at their generals a lot, so they need strong
Yeah.
vocal cords.
Yep.
The loss to my heart and soul is beyond my ability to comprehend. I live, I breathe, yet I do not feel beyond the cold numbness that drapes my body like a shroud. How briefly was I allowed to feast my eyes on his smile, to listen to his laughter, to know the scent of his skin? So few short days during which my body knew the sweet touch of his. Imagine talking about your carnal relationships with the Archon Basilieu at his funeral.
Yeah.
That's a little creepy.
See how war has mangled all this, and oh god.
My passion lies with this cold casket, and I am doomed as the shades of lost Archon hunters who forever wander the frozen forest. The rest of my life will be one long winter, with only my child to provide sparks of warmth. Though I rage against my fate, I know the loss of the Commonwealth is even greater than my own. And yes, what of the Commonwealth now? A question lies like a shroud over worlds. What of the Commonwealth?
So
Yeah,
she basically does a coup because everyone's kind of like that. Okay.
she got a good speech.
And
They've already kind of gone towards full feudal, it seems.
yeah, and really, she's the widow, so it's not the
The
like
best
there's
way to describe what happened, and it's not really a full-on coup from what I'm getting. It becomes the Steiners mainly because it's similar to one of the kings of Navarre was actually a French claimant to the throne, or at least had the claimant to the French because of his mother, like de jure auxuris or whatever.
yeah,
Basically, it's that situation where I married the previous king, I had his kid, and he's dead now, so I'm regent.
yeah,
And the government just accepted it because, let's be fair, their entire general staff was fired.
yeah.
Any military was fired.
She then basically redoes the stuff. Does a lot of
Oh no. There were 4 claimants, and only one of them was threatening.
yeah, and she says that the Archon is immediately the ultimate power, and then gets herself declared High Archon.
Yep.
Absolutely genius. So then has the other Archons and kind of plays the public relations campaign really well. Signs the Ares conventions. And their family background then comes to the fact that they were German, of course, from Schleswig-Holstein, of all
It
places.
might actually be Danish because of that.
Well, they actually they suggest that they may have adopted the Steiner name after they got out of East Germany. And then in West Germany, they established themselves in the field of computers and information services, became a local leader of the Green Party, and then ended up fighting fighting in when West Germany was fighting the Battletech equivalent of the Soviet collapse civil war that leads to everything, and that's where the symbol also comes from. Um, of the Steiner Fist was that they painted it on a tank, and it kind of just stuck for hundreds of years. Anyway,
I'm just reading the cleverness as you went into this about how Catherine managed to establish
yeah,
her role. She dressed her own baby in a little officer's uniform.
yeah,
Aw,
she
that's
just used
funny.
she used the cuteness of a child to
Well,
win the hearts.
also it looks like she put her opponents on fairly either backward or it looks like she shoved them into different areas and then kind of cut their power base at home. It looks
Yeah,
like yeah, they were militarily strong, but she cut their power base at home.
and also managed to get most of the other claimants either captured or killed in battle.
That too, because they were sent on fairly dangerous missions.
Yep, quite clever.
Yep, Steiner's going into detail. Steiner literature, the Steiner way.
Interest-free loans to damaged industries, and the loan policy also gave her access to essentially.
Well, no, it wasn't entirely interest free. Basically, yeah, I'll provide you the capital to rebuild. In exchange, I want some of your company stock.
Yeah,
And eventually, she would nickel and dime and slowly control them.
yeah, very clever. Uh, Also expanded the Commonwealth with colonization efforts.
Looks like I know what she's doing. Yeah, mercantile control. Basically, you slowly buy out your opposition, and then
Yeah,
once your economy is under their control, you basically rule their stuff, and that allows you to either keep them as an affiliate, or if you're really good and you start really flooding the markets, might even be able to invite them into the Commonwealth. That's probably how a lot of their expansion did.
yes, and she married again. That person got killed.
I just noticed that she, again, just like the Marsdens, bestow an entire planet in dukedom over those who've been especially loyal.
Yeah,
God, no wonder their generals suck. They don't
yeah,
like. I get nepotism, but the whole point of it is you're supposed to try to do the positive version of it. You know, where yeah, if you hire your friends, you got to pick the ones that at least kind of know what they're doing. Yep, Reynolds is dead. The Duke of Fatima. He died trying to take Sinjun. Oh fuck.
yep,
What a sad way to go. Innovations and revisions, yeah. The Brandenburg Edicts, which reformed the military somehow.
yep, and a few other things.
Well, I know how to fix the poor performance of its senior officers. It's called kicking out the dead wood or throwing them into sinecures.
Yeah,
That's a little implausible in a way, I think.
yeah.
A little bit.
Like it's a fucking it's 80s BattleTech. Like it's implausible in general.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna do it, I'd say it's due to the old boy, the social clubs they set up, and that's why it so often reverts back to shit.
Yeah,
Like
honestly,
like have it be each war, their initial officers are usually more promoted based on loyalty or connections. By the end, they're usually really good at fighting, mainly because new officers are in charge. But then the next generation fuck it up just
yeah,
because of the
and
social clubs.
I also want to note that a lot of this history that we're getting into again has been covered in other books,
Hmm?
which just kind of gets to the point where it's like it just takes time.
Yeah, like the Hesperus plant that allows them to get the mech. Blah blah blah.
Blah blah blah. Oh, yep, they're fighting the. They're fighting the
Steiner,
Mechs.
the
Okay.
Steiner Fist. It came from the Russian Civil Wars. No, it didn't.
Yeah, which it's the upraised clenched fist is a symbol of rebellion, basically.
If I was gonna do the clenched fist, I would have had it be more of a. It represents Katerin's approach of the Velvet Glove and the Iron Fist. The Velvet Glove, basically win your enemies over with trade, be kind, polite. The Iron Fist is if they're insistent.
Yeah, which again, it's world building stuff that you can take it or leave it.
The problem for the LCAF is they go through this cycle of getting rid of corrupt officers only for them to make it back in again. I would just have it be like, it's not the same officers, it's just the next generation of officers or the old boys connections, or you'd have another common thing you could do is make it so that it's really common for politicians to just sign on in the army, because that was a big problem during the Civil War, where political generals were people who wanted to improve their chances in office later on. So this was a big union problem, would serve on the battlefield to gain clout. It was more of an issue in the Union armies, and some of them were actually not too terrible. Some of them, a couple of them were actually pretty good. It's just, as a whole, they're not, because they were just politicians and basically used their money and influence to get in as an officer when they should have been probably mucking about in the kitchen. Operation Prometheus.
Yeah, it's
again, blah blah blah.
Yeah, like again, a lot of this just kind of gets on and on and on with the history. I'm sorry to say, like, it's really interesting to read on your own time, but to talk about it again and again, yeah, it just kind of gets to the point where it's just like, oh god,
we're a podcast. Yeah, we're here for you to listen to and kind of enjoy, but we also know that you probably don't want to listen to a 20-hour podcast.
Yeah, because you can go into depth on this. So
the bloodthirsty general. So they fight the Free World League.
They fight the Free World League. They fight like everybody else. The Star League gets formed. Blah 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 blah.
Well, we could, but I'll just very quickly. The reason the Free World League and Lyrans hate each other so much, they're both trading powers. They rely heavily on economic exports, and their expansion is the same way. So a lot of the times their wars are started because they have just tried to influence the same planet, and it's just turned to bloodshed.
Yes.
And that's why they are probably the biggest rivals with each other. As the Draconis is to everyone, but especially those Federated Sons, Free Worlds League is to the Lyran Commonwealth.
Yep.
Eternal enemies.
Yeah.
Long March, Hard March. Yep, basically they eat more shit. The agony of defeat, basically. Social clubs. How come our generals keep sucking for hundreds of years?
Yep.
The Dark Years.
Which is a 40-year period of absolute chaos. Due to an assassination, then a duke getting tried, then some mystic takes power, and then a long, ineffective ruler and all this stuff, and it's just like...
You know what would be more interesting than that?
What?
Okay, so how many of you are familiar with the era of princes?
Not interested, or not interested, not interested, not informed on it. Sorry.
So I forget the term. It's an Amharic. I don't remember how to pronounce it in Amharic. I think it's Nephesmet Infinite. It is a period in time in Ethiopia's history where it effectively decentralized and fell apart as a unified state. What happened was a fairly long-lived ruler decides to abdicate for his son, right? He wanted to stop being emperor of Ethiopia. His son dies, though. His son was always kind of scared that his father would just come back and take the throne, because the Ethiopians had a policy of literally trapping their spares, because they had a farm of spare emperors on hand in their little cathedral hikikomori prison. They had literally a holy mountain where they would shove their spares. So it's not entirely implausible that he could have been locked up in the cuck shed with all the other failed heirs, and his dad comes back. But it doesn't happen. Instead, I believe he dies. The guy also dies, and then you have a couple of not long ruling, but short ruling kings who die really quickly. And a lot of local rulers just kind of essentially prop themselves up and take from the cuck shed their own heirs, since the term era of princes. And for about 200 years, Ethiopia just ate shit. It ate shit and was massively decentralized. It wasn't until Theodore II that they unified again. You could have done something like that. I think this is kind of the equivalent for House Steiner, only not as bad. Ethiopian history is kind of an interesting time because at one point they were almost completely destroyed by the Somali in the 15th century. And conversely, they almost destroyed the Somali themselves, but then the time of princes happened. And that's what the dark years kind of remind me of, because of the assassination and destabilization and decentralization. Archon Michael was not satisfied. I wouldn't be happy either if my kingdom ate shit. Graft Simon had convinced them if they killed the Archon and implicated the Duke, a popular uprising would sweep aside the Steiners and usher in the Reynolds.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, this is like a lot of internal politics, because I really want to get to the fun stuff with this, because
order of magnitude, I think this is just stuff we've covered before.
Yeah, like a lot of this is stuff we've covered before, and while there is internal
no,
politics.
there's what's her face, Tatiana, the eternally depressed one.
Yeah,
she had to take medicine.
Yep.
Mysticism in Commonwealth. I imagine this is your this is your Rasputin equivalent,
or at least Rasputin similar stuff.
Steven Steiner, the crappiest of them all, the Tharkin Witch, the Fugitive, which looks like an. Oh, I actually like that art. On page 26, I like that art.
Yeah.
Margaret Olson, the Eagle's Cry. Is Robert the guy who unfucks the country?
Kinda, yeah.
So, yeah, basically Stephen is an incompetent idiot. And Robert comes at the head of several loyal regiments. I'm trying to figure... Oh, Margaret Olson is a hippie. She believes in reincarnation.
Yep.
Oh, look, Loki. The sounds of Loki assassination failure.
Yeah.
Robert Steiner presented his claim to archonship. He also responded to the crazy witch's favorite argument against him. I may be a bastard son, but I do not seem more fit to rule than. But do I not seem more fit to rule than a mad woman who believes in ghosts and reads state policy and tea leaves? I intend to govern with reason and the help of good men's counsel, not because the constellation of the stars, or by gazing into the Arcturian memory crystals. He basically told her, "Get out, hippie."
Hippies get out,
So, yeah, Robert basically reunifies the dark time. Confused. Okay, where were we? Terran hegemony. They kind of fought. Confused. Blah blah blah. Star League. We can just kind of skip this.
Yeah, like then we get into like the succession wars and all that. But it's
we can skip Star League because okay, for those wondering, we've covered Star League quite a bit.
Star League.
It was the closest to the old Terran Alliance in terms of unifying humanity.
Yeah.
But it kind of didn't. It was really a very crappy version of the Holy Roman Emperor, but during the time of the Habsburgs basically locking down the elections.
Yeah.
It's just that.
And there's also entire books on the Succession Wars, which are much more interesting and much more well put together because it provides a wider, broader look at the conflicts.
It also the reason the successor wars aren't as interesting is we I recommend either watching our Meet Davian video. We went a
Yeah.
lot more into detail there. There's the Free Worlds League. We've covered it to a degree there, but not as much. I will only state that the succession wars as they happened required the same amount of idiot balls that allowed the Germans to knock out France in World War II. Basically, everything had to go wrong for it to assemble the way it did.
Yeah.
Because it could
And
have been as easily solved by having the Capellans actually act consistent for once.
which is impossible because they're Capellans. But
True.
But the general kind of nature of all this is
Also,
that
I
there's a
like
lot
this
of
weird. Oh, what is this weird old man? And the soy smiles. Oh!
yeah. Like the fact of the matter is that the whole
It's Nicolas
list.
Cage. You don't say. It's Nicolas
Yeah.
Cage.
Again, they go through a lot of the.
Basically, we've covered this before. If you're wondering, in short, Star League was when quite a few technological breakthroughs happened, but at the time, because of the devolution of technology and how only a few really knew how to work it, kind of like now, but even more clown world. Effectively, the people running it started their own little tech cult because that's the only way that in the event things went to shit, this was the way to make sure that technology at least was partially saved so that you had something resembling a functional sci-fi state, even if it's as backwards as it could be. And then it culminates in the most evil man to have ever lived, an actual supervillain, plotting and managing to successfully murder the most incompetent of all monarchs. Because
Yeah.
the last Cameron King, because the Terran.
Well, he rigged all of it basically.
Yeah, he rigged all of it. The last Cameron King was an absolute mongoloidal moron who managed to piss off everyone and try to centralize when you can't. A guy named Kerensky had to fight basically Doctor Evil. I forget his name. He looks like Kane from Tiberium Wars. What's his name? The Palpatine guy who nuked Seattle.
Amaris? Are you thinking of
Amaris.
Amaris?
I'm thinking of
Yeah,
Amaris.
because I was trying to think. Are you like asking from another?
I
thing,
couldn't
or
remember
what the name of the
Stefan
guy
Amaris's
was?
name. I couldn't
You
remember
couldn't
Stefan
remember his
Amaris's
name.
name.
You can always remember the fact that he had a mustache and a bib and a weird haircut and was a fucking supervillain.
I can remember that part. I remember him weaponizing the mirrors of Venus to blow it up.
Yeah, he tried to make a sun laser. Yes.
Thanks.
Didn't work
yeah,
out.
my brain is not. But yeah, basically, he orchestrates the. I mean, honestly, let's be fair. The last Cameron King would have killed himself anyway, probably.
Yeah, but
He was picking fights with all the great houses, but Amaris sped it up. Kerensky put down Amaris, and the succession wars happened entirely because the one time that a character should have probably stayed consistent did not. Because Idiot Ball required the Capellan leader to not side with him. Even though she liked him a lot. There are some lesser Idiot Balls because I believe at the time the House Davian guy really was a petty, spiteful man. Yeah, he really hated Kerensky. He always felt he was under his shadow.
The Merrick guy you're talking about, Kenyan Merrick, was very much not a fan of Kerensky.
And the Davian, you had an exception.
Davian thought that he should be the one that's regent. Should be regent. The Capellan case was that they just didn't relate. Well, more that she expected that like Kerensky to fall in line and support her. And then Kurita just wanted to rule the entire thing.
The only one that was coherent with their beliefs were Davian and Kurita.
Well, also
for the guy, no, because the House Davian guy, I think his was at least reasonable. Not for being ruler, but like his Idiot Ball was logical for that character to make, because he was a stubborn, iron-willed, kind of incompetent ruler.
Yeah,
Like,
and
he was good at a couple things, but outside of that, he was a trash fire. House Merrick is more of a, it's just the wrong guy at the wrong time, because he... Actually, no. The reason I don't like him is he reminds me of Manstein von Karstein, the guy who ended Warhammer out of spite, because I can't rule it. I can't rule it, so I'm going to end the setting. That's what he reminds me of. Capellans were dumb. But anyway, let's get into the actual.
At some
plot.
point, we're gonna have to do a lore rambling on the end times. Just cover the entire end times because it's such a fucking shit show. There's some parts of it that I'm like, that's actually fun, and then there's other parts of it where I'm like, why did you do this?
God, I get it, but Operation Mailed Fist. Is this the Succession War, or am I just on?
This is Succession Wars. Let's just skip to the Succession Wars.
Well, I just want to very quickly. Who was the guy in charge at the time? Who was the guy or gal?
The one in charge at the time was a very ambitious guy who basically seized a lot of the Rimworld's Republic after Kerensky blew the shit out of it, basically saying, we're just going to take these worlds off your hands. You know, like, you want to go beat up Ameris, I'll just take these worlds from you so that you don't have to manage them. And of course, Kerensky basically just has to go along with it. It's a blatant power grab, but there you go.
Henry Graham, Warhammer, blah, 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 the good years. The Reunification War, the Star League. Oh, no, we're not even there. I'm going to just...
We're at the
let me
Star
look
League
at the art.
because...
Let me look at the art, because there's some cool images.
Here's
here's a colonel uniform for the Donegal Guards.
Yep.
I kind of like the field cap. It kind of reminds me of kind of a mixture of German and French army. Like the hat looks more like a kefi than it does a field cap. Like, have you ever seen a French kefi?
Yeah, I have. That's the
Kepi?
classic hat. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks a little more like that. I like that. I like the weird floating mech, which looks like it's holding a pipe that it's gonna beat people with.
It's actually an effective strategy in Battletech is to pick up limbs and pick up like pipes and tree branches and whack other mechs with them.
It looks like a mech that's about to beat you with a pipe. Respect it.
Yeah. Respect.
Here's a technician for their, I believe, for their mech corps. You can definitely tell she's from the Tamar Pact. Most likely. Although they kind of intermingle.
Who cares? Like that's the thing about like Battletech Sutures is like, yeah, there's a bunch of ethnicities and only a couple of worlds give a shit.
Yeah, no one cares.
One of which is in the Lyran Commonwealth, which is New Cape Town, which was founded by Boers and still practices apartheid.
Amazing.
Yeah.
When the first Lord Simon Cameron was killed inspecting a mining colony, he left the Star League strife with tensions that have been heating up. Yep. Unmarked military units began raiding the border worlds. Yeah.
Yeah.
Public relations elected Alexander Kerensky to be young Cameron's region protector. Did he some fear? Yep. Kerensky, he's more important later. Not really. Like, this is his time, and he just kind of leaves. Oh, it's Michael Steiner.
Michael Steiner, yeah.
Michael's like, yeah, I want all this.
And then his daughter, Jennifer, is the one that has the famous quote, leaving? What do you mean leaving to where? He can't leave. Who's going to pick up the pieces after we beat each other into oblivion?
How entitled.
Also kind of how they kind of all saw the nature of the Succession Wars even before they really kicked off.
Here is a warrant officer, jump ship maintenance guy. I kind of love to show that they're militarily incompetent. They've brought back the 19th century mustache.
They do. They have the mustachio.
I feel like that's supposed to tell you that's why their army is incompetent.
I also love the fact that they're talking about how like everything's velcroed and all that. Yeah.
I'll be honest. I think House Steiner has my favorite uniform so far.
It's very simple and it just works.
Yeah. I just like it more. The Free Worlds League is more hilarious because of all the fucking militia they have.
Yeah, so there's like 500 different uniform standards that you have to look at.
So that's fun.
Yeah.
Final act. General Kerensky, why did not take simple control of Star League? Common people in every one of the member states respected and admired him to the point of worship. I believe he thought never even crossed his mind. No, it did. He just realized he'd have to fight every single one of you fucking crayon eaters, though.
And then, as a man accustomed to discipline and purpose, he would have probably been driven mad trying to cope with the disorganization of the Star League. That's also kind of
That's
partly
part
true.
of it, but I think it's also he knew the war he'd have to fight, and he said, "Fuck that."
Yeah.
There's Kerensky just staring as all 5 people take idiot balls and commit suicide. Well,
Yeah.
if you're gonna do that, fuck this shit, I'm out.
Yep.
Exodus. Yep. What do you mean leaving? To where? You can't leave. Who's gonna pick up the pieces? Eat shit, Jennifer. Eat shit. He's gonna punish someone for going too far. He just gathers everyone and fucking leaves.
Yep.
First succession war. Blah blah blah. The only thing I'll say is the Steiner gets its ass kicked a lot because its generals suck.
Yeah, they do. They take some of the biggest L's in the succession wars.
Yep, getting beaten.
However,
yep.
They managed to keep their hands the entire time on Hesperus, despite fighting about 15 fucking battles over the goddamn planet. Because it again, as I mentioned before, it is the single largest battle mech foundry in the inner sphere. It is capable of manufacturing an army on demand. So as long as they hold Hesperus, losses don't matter that much because they can just replace them.
So I noticed. Hey, remember when I said that the Lyrans might have had a more competent navy at the time?
Yeah.
Let me read this part. It's the only part of the Succession War I think I'll seriously read. In one of the largest ship-to-ship engagements of the Succession War, the creative fleet managed to drive a wedge down towards the planet after dropping their ground forces. They then returned to re-engage the Commonwealth. Of the nearly 300 ships and fighters, which massively outnumbered them, by the way, only about 100 remained by the battle's end. They just got their shit wrecked a la Side 5. This was a Side 5 massacre, the Battle of Loam.
Yeah.
So no, never mind. Their navy was shit too. I don't know how my guess is it's just economic control.
Yes.
That's the only thing holding them together.
But yes, 30% of the entire battle mech production of the Lyran Commonwealth is on Hesperus.
Also, funnily enough, in that battle, you know who actually performed better than expected? The Lyran infantry.
Yeah. But yeah, like Hesperus produces like 10% of the manufacturing of the inner sphere when it comes to battle mechs.
The Tamar Tigers basically have been, let's see, they always got the best the Duke could afford. Blah blah blah. Succession War. They made several important raids, so these are like your Chindits.
Yeah, they've got a lot of lists of like units as they go through the Succession Wars.
Oh look, Mech Pilot. They look like a, oh god, they look like a future punk version of a Roman legionnaire.
Yeah, they do, don't they? Like the fact of the matter is that, yeah, the
sci-fi Roman legion.
The 80s look for mech warriors is that they've got the cooling vests and the weird helmets, and that kind of got moved away from later on because it was like, it looks kind of clunky, but it's got its own charm to it.
Well, if you're wondering, for those of you who are somehow not familiar with classic Battletech, basically, the Nukenings, all technology was basically fried in early Battletech, but it's been moved apart. And one of the biggest are a lot of systems like material sciences, a lot of alloy materials, at least the correct balances in the forging required for them were damaged beyond repair. A lot of the more, the more industrial and basic stuff is still there, but the mastery of building like the ultra modern compound armor and like material sciences for certain things, gone. Advanced communication arrays were damaged, but the simple and intermediate ones were fine. Cooling systems and heat sinks were basically set back by 400 years. So most mechs now can't use the modern cooling. Well, they can't, like the ability to build them are basically gone.
Yeah, until the Helm memory core gets recovered, which is also, if you haven't read them yet, the Grey Death Legion novels are actually some of the earliest BattleTech fiction. They've been re-released now for basically the 30th anniversary of BattleTech and
Reactor Technologies took a minor knockback. Efficiencies went down, but it's still about what it was. The big thing though was
I
heat
was about to
sinking.
finish what I
Sorry.
was saying, which is that the Grey Death Legion novels actually show the recovery of the Hell Memory Core and why it's such a big fucking deal. And again, it's early BattleTech writing, so it's not the setting itself is still getting fleshed out a bit, but it's still very good. I'd recommend reading them for just pulp novel feels. They're pretty good for that.
Speaking of weird, did you know that back in the day in Warhammer Fantasy there were red goblins?
I heard about that. The goblins weren't always green. Yeah.
Yeah, red goblins basically were those that I think were inflicted with chaos magic.
Yeah, it's like the chaos robots that became the Necrons.
Yep. But in case you're wondering, the reason why they're dressed the way they are is you need heat sinks, right, for combat and
Right.
everything.
And Battlemechs get hot because you're sitting on a fusion reactor for one thing. You're also dealing with lasers and a lot of heat from that.
Well,
So the more
like to give you an idea, all expenses are paid to basically shield you from the mega. What was it called? From all of the megavolts of not megavolts. The oh god, I'm forgetting the term. Megawatts of radioactive energy
yeah,
ripping its way
because
through the
you're sitting
fucking.
on a nuclear reactor basically. You're sitting on a sun.
There's at least 3 foot of fucking steel and lead in between there.
Yeah,
And
and
on
a
top of that,
reactor breach is not fun
despite that, they're hot as shit. They're hot
Yeah,
as shit. You can't fill it with water.
because it'll just turn into steam and become a giant fucking steam bomb.
So the best you can't do sodium because that's even worse. Sodium
So
reactors were a thing.
you have to vent the heat somehow, and condensation helps a lot.
So
So
a
there is water
combination
cooling
of
later on, but
there's a combination of factors. There's the cooling rods you have to put into these things. The
yeah,
neutralizers, basically, it's carbon nanite, graphite rods.
yeah, they actually have a whole
To
book
control
on
output.
how they
You
built the
have
fusion
basically
reactor.
the
It's fucking
Chernobyl
great.
reactor in there, because the
Yeah,
Chernobyl one also avoided using water mostly.
yes. The a little less volatile unless you're in a stackfold novel.
Yeah,
At which point they'll detonate
but
like a
even
nuke.
then,
But
it emits a fuckload of power, and the water's driven to do steam. So you're operating in a machine that can get up to a couple hundred degrees in there.
yeah, in the
There are
cockpit where,
internal air fans and cooling systems, but they're
but
not
they
very
don't always.
efficient.
Like they're good. In heavy combat with some mechs can basically mean that you're going to be wanting to be in an ice bath if you're wanting to survive.
And that's what those
The
vests. That's why they removed the skin. All the like originally the
like
suits
yeah
were actually much more bulky. Like you had larger suits.
the original suits were slimmer, but they had much better cooling systems, and they covered the full body to protect you from burns. And
But
also so
learning
that you could
about how
be
to make
in
those, that by the end of the first
that.
Succession War, that was gone.
By the end of the first succession war, those suits are basically gone. Now they kind of came back in the 2025, the 3025 BattleTech game. That's the sort of suits that they wear in that, but I think that was more for asset saving.
Yeah.
And
Also to get people to not be suspicious about the massive amounts. By the way,
yeah,
funnily enough, I actually think the skin here, in a way, doesn't save you because you're dealing with humidity. You want your skin to eject that water, that heat through the
yeah,
evaporation, which you can't. You can't because of the high humidity probably in the reactor and in your pilot
yeah,
seat.
yeah.
So
So
that's what the chest plates you see here are for. That's full of
yeah,
refrigerants.
it's full of refrigerant coolant. It's one of the descriptions in one of the novels is like having a bunch of cold snakes crawling over your chest.
Yeah, it's basically like
It's
if you.
uncomfortable. It's not very comfortable to pilot one of these like Succession Wars era mechs because it's very rudimentary, basic, mass producible cooling systems.
Battlemech
Uh,
cockpits always smell like sweat and pork. That BO and also occasionally septic
Also septic,
and
and
vomit,
they're also occasionally there's like some pilots that will get down and
burned
dirty in
hair.
those.
Yeah, burned hair.
Yeah, burned hair,
Also, you
and
notice that she's wearing rubbly gloves. That's because, when the mech gets going, those controls can get to the point where they scald your hands.
yeah. So you're possibly, or you
Mech.
have to or you have to do repairs inside the cockpit. Like it's not very comfortable to be a mech pilot. It's also the fact that you're kind of basically like the Pacific Rim drifting with this fucking thing. So you've got neural feedback going into your brain, and that can actually hurt you considerably if you take enough damage, because it's literally feedback to your brain of like, oh yeah, I just got shot.
Makes
You
you.
didn't actually get shot, but you feel like you got shot.
I just realized that Evangelion uses the same system with synchronization.
Yes, they do. It's a very classic mechanization warrior thing. So
I'll
the
also
thing about
point out that the reason why the armored guys get away with having nuclear stuff in theirs is theirs require a lot less kilowatts per hour, so they don't actually need as much fancy. So that's why they don't have to dress like that.
yeah, it's also that while you can feel like you just got shot in the chest, it's not actually painful. You just feel like it's just
Impact,
your brain. It's your brain
impact, and
feeding back
phantom
to it.
pain.
Yeah, it's not actually. It can be distracting. It's just not going to kill you.
By the way,
Um,
the Lyran's crowning achievement, the Tamar Tigers, actually managed to nuke in the Kurita world of Darun's massive dockyard plants up
Yes,
there.
they did. There's a lot of that in the Succession Wars of like raids because the first thing that everybody does is target everybody else's shipyards, so that they can't deliver warships into their backyard.
Which makes
You
sense
know?
because
Yeah.
in sci-fi, here's the thing: modern sci-fi, if you actually look into how wars would probably work, it's whoever gains orbital supremacy over the planet, and then after that, you can just drop kinetic ordnance at orbital speed on whatever the fuck you want.
Or
You
if
don't
you're
even
playing Stars,
you don't even need bombs, by the way. You could just uh, thunk some metal.
drop rocks. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, I like Star Sector where they say that what you're doing is you're literally dropping just your fuel canisters of antimatter down to the planet.
you could do that too. You could do like it doesn't matter. Just something sufficiently heavy, and that's why they're doing it. See, I get
Yeah.
that. I actually, now that I've thought about it, I get it more
Yeah. Battletech is in a weird situation where it's like the
because
authors
you
really did
perfectly
think about.
understand why they do it, but sometimes they have to make them stupid on purpose.
Yeah. Like the idea behind, well, why are Battlemechs used? Well, the reason for that is because of the Ares conventions. Well, why were the Ares conventions? Because everybody kept nuking each other a lot.
See,
So there's
what they tried to do, if you're wondering, is they tried to do. Hey, I get. It's been about an hour and a half. I'm talking about Gundam. It took me a while.
Mhm.
So here's how Gundam did it. So okay, what happened is the big problem with your big battle mech suits is your nuclear reactor. Battletech resolves this by essentially creating a safer form of fusion and a miniaturization,
Yeah.
just like Gundam. Gundam had basically a hypothetical particle called the Minovsky particle, is something that also can be a decay product, right?
Right.
In a reactor. The difference is the Minovsky particle, because of its structure, basically the type of particle it is, it's more like a neutrino in that it doesn't really do damage when it gets emitted from a reactor. You don't have to worry about your cellular machinery getting shat on. So basically, designing reactors to emit more of these than traditional beta, alpha, and gamma particles allowed you to make them a lot smaller and their shielding a lot thinner.
Mhm.
Also, these mechs that they're doing, same thing for Battletech. They started as construction units. The difference is they were designed for space combat because you don't need aerodynamics in space.
Yeah. Meanwhile, in BattleTech, it's like literally we just need something that we can drop from orbit onto a planet or from
Basically,
like high altitude.
it's a larger construction machine. That means we can shove more kilowatt hours into this thing, meaning we can put more weapons on it.
Not only that, but we can drop it from like say 300, 400 feet, and because it's got knees and it reacts like a human, it can roll.
On top
You could
of
do a
that,
combat
it's a
roll with a
lot
mech
better at
if you
handling
had to.
terrain. It's the same logic for why occasionally we still have the United States Army trying to get robots or like walking
Robot
vehicles.
dogs and stuff like that. Yeah.
Same logic.
It's the same logic, and it's a very neat thing where it's like, yeah, mechs are still impractical as fuck, but they're cool. Fuck you,
And in
you
this
know.
case, they have the science to basically allow it because, hey, once you solve fusion, power doesn't mean fucking shit.
And then there's this substance known as mimer, which reacts to electricity, but like a muscle would, and is incredibly strong,
Which I
allowing
think
it to
we've
lift
actually discovered
weight.
stuff similar to it,
Yes, we have. It's
which is
a
kind
very
of
similar.
cool.
Yeah, like
Myanmar's actually fucking canon to a degree.
Myomer's relatively plausible. Like a lot of the things with BattleTech's design and technology is that even the really impractical stuff is still kind of plausible.
You
Like the
know,
Shaw Fukushima drive is not really like it's an FTL drive with very strict limitations. and requires like solar sails to recharge it and things like that, which is kind of neat.
It's similar to our real life Alcubierre drive, which requires you to use effectively quantum vacuuming to get something called zero energy from it.
Yeah, it's
Like you
there's
need
a lot of
exotic particles to make it work.
yeah, and again, the same thing with like, well, why does FTL work? Why are the HPGs work? They just go, well, it shunts it off into subspace or some shit
While
like
the
that, and then it just
Alcubierre, their logic is different. It's, oh no, you're not actually moving yourself. You're moving space-time around. You're bubbling space-time around you.
yeah,
You're
it's
squeezing space-time in front and in back like a noodle.
yeah. Jump transfer in BattleTech sometimes results in people no longer being on the ship, and no one knows where they went. Uh,
And then you hear gurgling in the walls.
yeah, there's a lot of like there's some fun stories with like potentially supernatural things that happen in BattleTech. And because it's blended over time between like, is there actually future sight, is there not, is there psychics, is there not, is there all this, and
It's
also that there's
because they
no
kept
aliens
looking at other sci-fi. Oh no,
yeah
there are, but it's in a non-canon book.
it's in a book so tangentially related to canon, and they will never interact with the rest of the universe. It's called Far Country. It is the only BattleTech novel featuring aliens, and it is literally
One of the
the
worst
jump
ones too.
it's one of the ones where everybody's like, why did you write this? What does it actually do for the rest of it? And they just kind of shrugged and went, well, you bought it, didn't you? It's infamous because it's just like okay, like
I like how they also tried to bring psychics. That's that mysticism that snuck its way into sci-fi quite a bit. Gundam had its new type where the concept actually relies. You know the Jungian superconscious, where everyone is slightly collected to a collective psyche.
Yeah,
that's how new types do.
BattleTech plays with it with like the Phantom Mech, which is like a weird quasi monk power that a couple of characters display once or twice. Like the mech's there, but it's not, and it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Then there's the future visions that occasionally clanners and others will have. The Goliath Scorpion ones are fun because it's like they just literally just do drugs. They just do a fuck ton of drugs to go and have their vision quests.
About the only thing
awesome.
handwave in BattleTech are the KF drives and FTL. Well, yeah, you kind of have to.
Yeah, you have to. You have to basically. Everything else is legitimately like is about as scientific as you can get it, which is actually quite fun for a setting like this.
And that's honestly why I'm of the opinion that modern sci-fi is dead, because the current people writing that, they don't care about. They actually don't understand the mechanics.
The closest to like this sort of hard sci-fi that I've read is the Lost Fleet series, which I recommend picking up. It's a fun little pulp novel kind of style of thing, and The Expanse.
Yep,
because The Expanse does play around with actual physics and actual like logistics of living in space and things like that.
But most modern sci-fi writers nowadays,
they just hand wave it.
They either hand wave it, are mostly using it as a stepping stone to get into television and movies, or they started as young adult writers, books for kids.
This doesn't. There's some fun. There's actually a series that I remember that did a really fun bit where it's like, well, what's life on Mars like? And they kind of went into the fact that like because you're on Mars, you have less gravity, which means like a lot of the things that you'd assume would be like normal aren't really normal. So you like have to be in like kids have to be in like special high gravity areas to develop bones properly and things like that.
So if you're wondering, yeah, we're just skipping Hesperus. Basically, it's a surprise that they're able to hold it on, but it allowed them to win.
Yeah,
Jennifer died.
Yeah, and then they kind of go into just a bunch of like other shit with like Hesperus, all this other stuff. There's a guy with a shotgun that they just put a big thing on the end of it and called it a laser gun.
Yep. That's the one that killed Jennifer, basically, and her daughter Viola.
Yeah, some of the art in this is just kind of like, okay.
Basically, her children have to pick up the pieces. They're still kind of losing because at the end of the day, the reason the Lyrans kind of suck, I think it's still occasionally implausible because as wars go on, you pick up better tactics.
Yeah.
By this point, their officers should at least be somewhat comparable.
By the way, if we get to page 67, which is where we actually get to the relevant stuff, there's another great art
nice
of a
officer uniform there.
Yes, there is some nice officer uniform, but you get another look at an actual mech pilot.
We don't care about that.
Another look at a mech pilot. The Lyran Guards are one of the older units. I could go on and on about BattleTech units because they actually do like a lot of interesting stuff with them.
Yeah,
Uh,
and it's similar to how 40K had the Space Marines, and to a lesser degree, Fantasy did that with the different elector counts, where each of
yeah,
their armies had special units, like you had the
you can make
Hawkwind
your dudes
rifles,
you can make your dudes with minis, which is
and
really fun.
it's more encouraged in BattleTech than 40K, especially
And
nowadays.
BattleTech says if you want to run mercenaries, do whatever paint scheme you want, and it doesn't matter what mechs you run because it's literally they're mercenaries.
I like the weird
Dave,
race suit uniform.
yeah, like Dave the mercenary found a warhammer somewhere, and then you got Bill who's got a fucking weird pimped out clan tech thing that he acquired in
What's
a
the
card
chicken
game.
walker I remember liking? Is it the Raven?
The Raven. The Raven's a fun mech.
Little chicken walker.
The Raven is one of the few Capellan mechs that I think you liked, where it's like the idea behind it is basically we can't fight another successor state one on one head on all the time. We don't have enough mechs and enough heavy mechs for that. So we're gonna rejigger ECM from the Star League era and redevelop that to create a support mech that allows us to basically deliver a heavier combat patrol right into where they don't expect it.
And I'm just envisioning it like strutting like a chicken and flapping its little arms.
Yeah, there
Beautiful. It's a
and also,
beautiful
of
machine.
course, the Capellans would also use it to hide a bunch of Urbies to run a fucking suicide run on a fucking command post. Because
No,
imagine
you'd
if you
use
will,
the Urbies to distract as you put the fusion bomb on a truck.
yeah,
So
as you put your war crimes onto other war crimes.
yeah, reconstruction efforts because basically, yeah, they armisticed obviously.
Yeah, basically the Succession Wars boiled down into three periods, which is the first Succession War, which is everything gets nuked. There's the second Succession War, which is this is when like the high tech stuff really dies out because everyone's going for that last final blow because they think they can get it.
Because no one decisively won. Literally in the quote, "Thank God it's over" for Richard Steiner.
Yeah, like
And in this case, they get sucked in because the Tamar Pact was fucking broken by the first Succession War.
yeah, the
Kurita
Draconis
raided
Combine
or ruled most
wrecked
of
the
it.
fuck out of it. Yes.
And because of that, yeah, Richard might have wanted to stay in, but that's not
There was
happening.
yeah.
Not with Tamar screaming for vengeance.
Yeah, once the
So they get
second
dragged
Succession
in.
War, yeah, the second Succession War kicks off and kind of gets awful. Comstar's behind that one.
Yeah, because
because the new head of Tom Star immediately realizes that the biggest threat is Kurita, so we should just make everybody else gang up on Kurita.
on top of that, it also allows the tech monopoly because let's be
Yes,
fair, a 50-year succession war which destroyed 80% of the advanced technology they were working on at the time. Okay,
our goal is to try to preserve human society. We need to make sure that we have the monopoly on technology because these motherfuckers are definitely not going to be able to do it.
so tech, you're an I don't know what IT when you stretch out the term stand for. Intelligent systems internal
Internal
technician.
technician. Yeah, internal technician. Basically,
You're an
that's what
internal
IT kind of stands for.
technician, right? Okay, imagine
Yeah,
you've designed a massive computer system that is designed with basically it's designed to manage an entire network system, right? That
yeah,
covers a continent effectively.
yeah.
Like Mexico, Canada, United States. Like it
The
spreads
best.
nodes all around for I don't know,
Yeah.
finances, it could be documentation, it could be anything.
Hmm.
And then you watch as it's kind of decentralized though because different companies use the network that you basically run, right?
Yeah.
And they start using it to shit all over each other. And like they send armed goons with hatchets to break fucking servers and fucking
Yeah.
send
Or
malware to
holds. Yeah.
fry. Okay, imagine
That's
if you watch for 5 months them destroying the thing that you spent years building with your peers.
yeah. That's kind of Comstar's perspective on all of this.
How would
It's
you feel if you
stop
saw
wrecking
this?
our shit. Now, admittedly, the most of them tried not to fuck with Comstar because Comstar can do one of the things that they did during the Succession Wars occasionally, which is it's called an interdict. So Comstar basically
And
says,
I believe this
no
happened,
FTL.
and I think this happened with the Capellans. They were, it
It
was no, it
happened
was
with the
Kurita.
Merrick. It happened with both Kurita and with
Kurita and Merrick.
Merrick
Yeah,
at
it was
one point.
Merrick. Basically,
Uh,
because the Merrick pulled a funny and actually managed to out their weird
they
little conspiracy partially.
Yes, they did, and because they had one of the Merrick family was a member of
Pretty
Comstar.
deep in Comstar, and they chose
Yes,
family over the company.
More accurately, they tried to use the company to coup the family. Because Comstar is a political player. They wanted to secure the Free Worlds League as a potential ally in the future. This comes
Especially
back
since after
later on.
Kerensky left and the Succession Wars, they needed someone like that.
They needed allies. Now, admittedly, they had the Com Guards secretly, but most
you
of the
don't
part
want
they
to
were running
unleash them out.
mercenaries.
Yeah, you don't want to bust them out because
That's
they're
your secret
powerful.
army.
Well, they're powerful, but let's be fair. If the great houses saw that, they would just
Yeah,
they would
Comstar having an
it would
army
stick.
of its Comstar having an army, a massive army, is kind of a secret because it's like it's a balance of power issue.
Like, yeah, they know that they have army units personally, but those
Yeah, they
are
know they have
usually
guards. They know
those are
that
to
they
watch
have
infrastructure.
they know they watch infrastructure. They defend from pirate raids. They occasionally escort ships and things like that. Like
And enforce interdicts occasionally if, say, one of the rogue members decide to try to hijack their stuff.
yes.
Like,
So an
you're not
interdict.
letting me use your technology. I'm just taking it.
So an interdict is basically a message in the system that basically says everything in this area, this circuit of Comstar,
Has
of
been turned
the
off.
HHT network,
Eat shit, pay
is
your
turned
bills.
off. Eat shit, pay your bills. You can no longer use FTL communication.
Karina's
That's
response was
huge.
just to say, "Go fuck yourself," and kept going.
Merrick did that for a while, then they tapped out. Both of them eventually tapped out because it basically turned their war efforts into a fucking nightmare.
And that's the only reason Steiner didn't get its shit pushed in, because A, they were not ready for a war. B, again, social clubs are a problem, and this is a new generation of officers that have lessons of war, but remember, because of the way the social clubs work, they're mainly picked, and because of a lot of precedent, because you have the Marsden family and the
Yeah.
first of the couple Steiners. They pick for loyalty. So while the lessons are learned, these are usually not your best. They usually pal around with the same old families. New blood is not easily accepted among their number. So while they've learned the lessons, by this point, most of them are the equivalent of Colonel Blimp. They
Yes.
are old, crotchety, and while they may know more than you'd expect, the new generation ain't listening to them, old man. You're Colonel Blimp. You're from the fucking fossil age.
Yeah. So the second succession war goes better for the Lyrans in general. It
Mainly
still doesn't
because
go very well.
Kurita has been neutered pretty hard.
The second succession war can basically be described as everyone beats the shit out of the Kuritans.
And that's the only reason that the Lyrans do well, because they were not ready for a war already. They were still rebuilding.
Merrick takes a bit of a hit. Capellans take a nasty punch as well. Merrick kind of weathers the blow and takes some worlds, loses some. The real winner is Davian because they get to push back basically all of the losses that they had in the first succession war to Kurita. And Kurita is really the big loser of the second succession war.
Yep. Lyrans basically had advantage of co-belligerents. They had the
Yeah.
advantage of not having to worry about Korean's best because they're basically trying to stop Davian.
They're trying to stop Davian from just going incredibly deep into their territory.
And on top of that, the Koreans were crippled by communications.
Yes. Well, actually, Merrick was more crippled than Kuritans. I don't remember if they were interdicted during the second succession war or not.
Though. I know they were.
I think they were definitely threatened to be interdicted. The fact of the matter is, though, that that's part of this power of the interdict is that it literally turns your entire country, your entire nation, basically falls apart. Because think about it like this, right? It's not just military communications; it's civilian communications as well for economies. So your stock market breaks down overnight.
Yeah, you can't rely on a stock market. That only kind of exists because of the advent of the telephone.
Yes, you can't. So stock prices are immediately like, if it's off planet, an international corporation can no longer rely on a stock price. Not only that, but also interplanetary shipments for goods now have problems because how do you request more goods fast? You have to send ships.
And their subspace version of SatNav is not working anymore.
No,
so you're going to have more. Well, it kind of is, but remember, I imagine those relay stations help though with aiming. So your system jumps are probably going to be worse.
That's probably true. I never thought about that, but yeah,
because you need it's similar to Warhammer's Astronomicon beacon, where you need some form. If you're in subspace and you're not able to really see the real space, you need some form of direction. In
They calculate. They actually just use a calculator to jump to a jump point in system. Now, depending on how fast you calculate that, it can be a pretty accurate jump, or it can be a good bit off time. It just depends on how long you take to calculate.
I just thought maybe they'd have the equivalent of like a relay beacon or something.
They kind of
similar.
do. But those are jump recharge stations. Essentially, there's ways to charge up a jump drive faster than you would normally, and these are lost tech. So they're actually incredibly important in the early Succession Wars eras to keep protected. And basically, there kind of became an agreement that we're not going to target jump ships because jump ships are too valuable to lose. We lose enough jump ships, interstellar society breaks down. And we're also going to stop targeting relay recharge stations.
That's a bad idea.
Because it's a bad idea. We can't rebuild these, and they speed up interstellar travel considerably. So we're just going to stop doing that. So it allowed it kind of basically the second Succession Wars were kind of the agreements of we're going to try to stop murdering ourselves all the time. Starts to take root, and then the third Succession War becomes basically the classic Battletech setting of low tech. Raids constantly because you can't move these large fleets anymore.
At least not without igniting something worse.
Right. So because nobody wants to throw their very few warships out and about again. They're now firmly in the terms of strategic reserve, where you're using them to basically go, yeah, I got warships. Don't fuck with me, please.
Especially since the efforts to rebuild, they don't seem to like. The technology is not really there anymore to build the infrastructure.
All the shipyards are fucking destroyed.
Yeah, there's you'd have to start from scratch, and even then, I don't think they know fully how to make a full size. Like, if they do, at best you're getting a something
Comstar knows. Comstar knows, and Comstar is killing everyone that is trying to usurp their technological monopoly. Like, if you've got a guy trying to make a breakthrough and Comstar doesn't like it, they're going to infiltrate into your networks and they're going to murder that guy. That's kind of how Comstar works.
The way it would work is you could maybe build the equivalent of a small spaceport, but
you could
technology to build a larger one, you'd have to basically build that from scratch, and that's really expensive. That's another thing. It's really expensive, and there's a lot of raids and wars. The only people who could probably afford it are the Federated Suns, the Lyrans. The Lyrans definitely could.
The Free Worlds League and the Lyrans definitely could.
Draconis and Capellans could shove enough bodies, though.
Yeah, the Free Worlds League, not the Free Worlds League, the Federated Suns probably can't afford it because their economy isn't the greatest, honestly.
It's propped up by like good performing worlds.
Yeah, it's just the rest of them are all fucking shit.
Yeah.
So it's like
the Lyrans, Free Worlds League, and the Capellans because they can shove enough bodies through slavery.
Yeah.
Karita 2 via mandate.
Yeah, they could do it by mandate, but it wouldn't be like a really good one.
It would take a while. But the problem is it's expensive. They don't want to do it. They're just going to use their legacy, maintain them. And on top of that, I don't know, every time like the Lyrans try to expand their spaceport and like maybe build an offshoot like a military dock, it just explodes. Like, I think there's something with the reactor design, man.
Yeah, there's something with the reactor design. Please ignore the men in white robes that keep
the reactor design I don't think it's stable. We're missing something critical in it.
Yeah, just please ignore the mentions of the grand word of Blake coming from our noble brothers, the Comstar, and also the explosives that they bought.
So the second Succession War is interesting. It's the first time that the Lyrans actually devolved to using militia at all.
Yeah.
They didn't have a set up militia unit. That only happened after the first Succession War.
Yes, the second Succession War is kind of one of those things where it's like, well, shit, here we go again.
Because
let's try to get out of Succession Wars, though, please.
Tale of Grimm.
There's two long books on these, please.
Claudius the Cruel.
Let's.
Death of the Fourth.
We're talking about like page 67 here, please. I want you to see this picture, please.
The Triumvirate.
No, the Battle for Sky.
Elizabeth Steiner. Yeah.
There's a Legend of the Black Pearl, which is fun too.
Third Succession War. Hey, look, it's a mech with. I'm gonna move on because that's not where a gun should go.
No, it's a Macross mech in one of the ANs. That's a land air mech.
Don't worry, they're out of business, so they can't sue this podcast.
Harmony Gold, no. But yes, we get one of those pictures, and I love it.
This feels like the ending of a video game. Does it, like if they made a BattleTech 4x strategy game in
Yeah,
1992, can't you see this being a win photo?
yeah, I can.
It feels like a 1992 computer game screen.
It does.
I love it.
It's a couple of men saluting with like a flag, and then there's a bunch of people in the background.
Hanging on. Yep, we're just gonna. Oh, here's another. Here's the BattleTech lady. I
Yep.
like the nicotine patches she's having.
Yeah, those are like skin patches to monitor her body heat and all that. And, uh, superior Commonwealth technology, a lighter weight helmet.
Oh yeah,
The-
this is the
yeah,
lightweight edition of the helmet.
this is the old classic BattleTech helmets, neuro helmets look so fucking ridiculous.
Well, in this
Uh,
case, again, it makes sense because your head is because of the brain activity and the amount of
yeah,
blood vessels. You kind of need something like that if you're gonna do
yeah,
cooling.
yeah. Then you get the fun bit with like she's got this.
She has a pilsner can
Yeah, like that's
liquor.
what really stood out. Like she's got a beer in her hand and just like,
Yeah,
I'm getting drunk. Fuck you.
the battle for Sky. Yep, more blah blah blah.
More
Mass mobilization regiments, which are cool. The Donegal Guards, they're good.
yeah. Then there's like
The
this
cost of freedom.
then there's some other stuff. Then we get finally like pages later, please, god
The
damn it. Let's
open
just get through
wound.
this.
Basically, the Third War has a lot of stuff happening, which culminates in, well, we already know. We've mentioned it in the House David. Oh, wait,
Yeah.
no. Atlas, baby.
Yeah, there is an
An
atlas.
Arcturan Atlas, because that's the Arcturan symbol.
Yeah.
Oh, look, it's an egg. It's the egg. It's floating with little
That's a Union class dropship, I'm pretty sure.
It has planes dropping out of it, too.
Yep, they can
Oh, wait,
carry
no,
a wing
those
of
are
fighters.
Atlases. Those are more Atlases, I think. Dropping from it.
That'd be also pretty rad too.
Ah, the Atlas. It's
Oh my
one of my
god.
favorites.
They do this is I think the first mention of Snords Irregulars is in this book.
Yeah.
We'll get to them eventually. They're fun. But we're gonna get to page 79 for current events to kind of understand what's going on
We
here.
don't really like. Here's the big thing. Yeah, the lady with the horrible face is getting married.
No, actually, her daughter is.
Her daughter's getting married.
Yeah. And also the Wolf's Dragoons are coming around. But yes, Cranston Snords Irregulars is a fun unit. Their symbol is literally the back of a silver dollar.
I love it.
Well, a quarter.
There's also the term filthy lucre, which is fun.
Yeah,
They're in debt though.
they're in debt. Contract expires. Financial situation good. Uh, Cranston Swords Regulars is most famous for being just completely fucking bonkers. They kind of just do their own thing and a lot of weird shit too. Like they've got Frankenmechs. They kind of work for pay in weird old collectible items. One of them broadcasts Elvis over the loudspeakers of their mech whenever they're in combat.
So for
Another
Coyote, yep, you have to use the Pony Express model of communication.
Yeah,
And
you
with
do if
jump
you're
points,
under
you
it.
have to update the data. Yep, because of
Yeah.
movement of the astral bodies.
Yep. And then we get to the actual meat of the book, in my opinion, which is like,
Turns
how the fuck does
positive.
this actually work?
Yep, it's positive. It's improving because their economy is improving. Their generals still suck, especially since the Third War isn't really cutting out dead wood anymore.
Also, Frederick Steiner is kind of making noise and not exactly the happiest with
The
allying
Union.
with the Confederate. Yeah. Frederick Steiner is very important later, but we'll get to him later.
The government of the Lyran Commonwealth is stable and remarkably representative. It's inherent in the strong Steiner. Its stability is due to the strong Steiner monarchy, which has been wise to follow the airing of viewpoints rather than its own. War-torn era, flexibility of the government's nothing short of blah blah blah. Tharkat is their capital, and Tharkat City is the official home. The Arkan ship.
Yep, and
There's
the
9
Royal
Arkans
Palace, Royal
and
Court, and Government House are in all together in a big triangle known as the Triad.
Yep, many Lyran noblemen currently have their own troops, some of which are quite skilled. Most mech regiments maintain their ties to the Archons themselves.
Yeah.
Oh wait,
The
no, there's just one Archon.
Yeah, there's only one Archon now.
Yep.
They got
Sorry,
rid of the other 8.
I forgot they were thrown into space and killed.
Yes. Then there's the Estates General, which kind of runs the general stuff
Similar
of
to
the
the three
nation.
estates of France back in the day.
Yeah. It's also very similar to how the Capellans are set up.
Only they actually let the estates do things.
Well, no, the Estates and the Capellans also do things, and so does
Yeah,
the
it's just
Parliament.
only
And
5% of the population can use them.
it's just only 5% of the population is eligible to be in there. It goes. It's similar in the Estates General as well.
But the citizenship bar's lower, so a noticeably a larger amount of people actually have a say.
Yeah.
An urban mech that does 108.
Oh no. Oh god, that is actually horrifying. The world's fastest Urbi. Oh fuck that.
Just I'm envisioning faster, and you just see it stomping with
Yeah,
absolute insane speed. You see parts of it starting to shake off.
yeah. I wonder if how fast could I make an Urbi? I'm actually tempted to figure that out.
We'll calculate it at the end, I think. The Commonwealth
Um,
Council, yep, this is your advisors, the leaders of the Tamar
but
Pact,
part of the
Federation of the
reason is
Sky.
that the Tamar has a lot of votes on the council, and also that they can influence things quite simply. They have only a few 4 worlds under their thing for votes, so the Archon always has 5 votes. But they can get more through bribes, basically.
And that's how it do.
Yeah. Then they go into the fact that, like, yeah, there's a council, which is where the old Archons kind of went. And then the council has a lot of power themselves. They can
Yep.
review the legislation
And they
and handle the
actually can
day-to-day
meet.
running.
They can meet when the Archon is not there, unlike the Capellans.
Yes. They have 8 advisors, and they can basically propose or veto legislation somewhat.
Kind of a return to the Archons, but with nowhere near the power.
Yes.
And the
They
current
can't stop
members
legislation,
are
but they can get rid of it pretty
there's
easily.
Selvin Kelswa, Margaret Atten. These are just dukes.
Duke, Edward Regis, Frederick Henson, Gerald
Henson
Houston.
is the commanding general. Finances is Houston. Internal policies, Eddie's.
Policies, Foreign Affairs is Simon.
And Lyran Intelligence. And Chancellor
Yeah.
of the People.
Yes.
There's a royal
which is the
court.
which is the one that is elected from the Estates General to be part of the council, I think.
Yep, they represent the people. Royal court, which is basically just the built palace, the big palace.
Yeah, it's nice.
Here's the Archon's throne.
Yeah,
not bad.
Not bad.
Actually, I just realized that the uniform of the Royal Guard reminds me of the Xeon uniforms.
It reminds me of the Star Wars uniform from A New Hope.
Oh yeah, back when they tried to talk about the Imperial Army, but they threw it out because they forgot about them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a thing. In Star Wars, there's an Imperial Army. It don't matter, though.
It's Stormtroopers all the time.
They forgot about them.
Always
Stormtroopers. It's like how Clone Wars keeps shrinking the size of of the armies, so that you're for a whole fucking galaxy using millions of people, which sounds like a lot until you factor scale.
Yeah.
Like,
Sci-fi Raiders,
we looking
sensitive
at
scale,
baby.
Yeah. Battletech's also kind of bad at scale.
To a degree, but the difference is, you know what they did to make themselves not stupid? There's only like 1,000 planets that they have to worry about.
Yeah, even then,
and it's like maybe 600 light years across.
Yeah, even then, it's still like way too few mech regiments and way too few people and all that.
Well, the thing is, mech regiments are big, and you'd be factoring in the other army parts much more.
No, even then, when they talk about like other army parts, like the actual armed forces are
like
way
a
too
regiment
small.
sounds like a lot, but no.
Yeah. Like the actual armed forces of all the successor states are way too fucking small.
Like to give you an idea, the reason why scale in Gundam works the way it does is they're relatively small. Like the Battle of Odessa in Gundam, the original, it was the largest engagement of I think 100 mechs. No, it's like 100 or 200 mechs. And that's just because we're dealing with scale of 10 billion people. Well, 5 billion after the massive amounts of nuclear declarations and gassings.
Meanwhile, the Battle of Tukia, like I think I did a calculation. The rough amount of mechs that were deployed is something in like over like 4 to 5,000. It is the largest mech on mech engagement of the war, of like any war in Battletech history.
Which, I mean, for a planet, I think that sounds about right.
I mean, when you consider that it's most of the comm guards versus like 5 invading clans.
Yeah, I mean, for a planet, you probably only need like a couple hundred at most.
And mind you, that number doesn't include things like mechanized infantry, aerospace assets, all this other stuff. Like there's
I know, like I'm just
Tukia is
referring.
fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, right.
So
So they talk about
nobility,
the nobility.
open nobility.
Yes, anyone can be given a noble title. Usually, it's given for a planet, and then Margrave is a much more detailed title.
They're
Something
following
graph.
the Germanic forms.
Yes, and then a baronship is done if you've done a good service. Basically, it's the equivalent.
That's wrong though. That's a French term.
Yeah,
Oops.
they're reserved for eminent like it's.
Where's the Ritter? Where's the Ritter in? Where's the knightly houses?
There is a
Where's
Knight
the
of the Commonwealth,
Where's the Edler?
which is just a respect thing. Also, the general of the
Where's
army.
the Edler? Like, there's other titles. I'm just pointing them out.
I know. They talk about the Estates General, and basically, no one whose title is higher than a baron can actually become a representative in the general Estates General.
Yeah, because it's similar to the Polish Sejm. Actually, Siem. I don't know how to pronounce it. They Polish is a horrifying language that jams the letter J and S together and assumes you know how to pronounce that.
Yeah. They then go and talk about the fact that, well, technically speaking, the
Dukes are
General,
rewarded to the Zaibatsus, basically.
yes,
The giant corporations.
yes. The fun fact is that Alessandro, Duke
Many a
Alessandro
noble
was
who's come by his title through landholding gets angry, though, when a big businessman becomes a duke. Long and bitter legal battles often occur between the two. Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, it's quite fun.
Margrave, purely
Yeah.
military, given to, well, Marcher Lord. That's what it means.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. Yes. Then they talk about the barons and the graph, which is a graph is essentially a large landholder or a large industrial.
Yeah, Landgraf is the big like graph on meth.
Yeah. Then
I feel like because of the German, it feels kind of dumb that they're called an Archon.
Yeah.
I feel like
Battle.
Kaiser.
I want to note this. Then there's like a couple of ways you could look at that. You can look at that way, and then you can remember that there is the Yamanamoto Daimashi, everything must be Japanese faction right next door. So I think that like let's remember that this is the future of the 80s, and that the authors themselves probably were like, I like the term, I like Baron, because there was a Red Baron, right?
I mean, at least the Japanese people aren't worshiping Vimto. Did you know that Allah was actually depicted in the first edition of Warhammer Fantasy? The Arabians actually literally worshipped Allah. It was described as aligned partially to chaos as like a moon deity or something.
Oh Jesus, no! That
they were
God.
hinted to worship demons in the guise of genies.
Oh no! Oh Jesus!
And they also worshipped fucking Allah.
Like there's offensive and there's getting into like that where I'm like, oh God.
Oh, don't forget the Southlands pygmies, which are literally they look like something you'd see on the fucking animation cells of Coal Black and the Seven Dwarves, but in tribal garb, and they're short.
Oh, fucking Christ!
They look like Black Pete with red lipstick on them.
Shorts Pete at least has the excuse where he's covered in coal. You know, like Schwartz Pete at least has that. That's the excuse. That's the reason why he's
Make the most racist caricature of an African tribal. Make them the size of hobbits and exemplify their portliness and their African ancestry, and that's what they look like.
Oh God! like, and this is the 80s that they did this in. I want to know. This isn't like the 40s. This is the fucking 80s they did this in. GW, like, holy fuck, my dudes. There's good old fashioned racism, and then there's like, what the fuck is that?
Oh, did you know that in Nippon there was an attempt to basically do the equivalent of the not Boshin War, the overthrow the shogunate, because
Yeah.
they had the audacity of not killing every foreigner that sailed by their shore because they survived the initial cannon bombardment in raids. Because they are so xenophobic, they kill on sight foreign ships.
That's based. That's actually pretty based.
They tried and failed to murder not the emperor, but the shogun, because he failed in his duty of killing the foreigners who have gazed upon their land.
all filthy Gaijin.
Oh man, it's also heavily hinted that their warrior monk society worships corn, but like in wuxia monk kung fu style.
Okay.
So you have cornate monks.
Cornate monks sounds like a fucking contradiction.
Well, it's the discipline of bloodshed. And he's kind of seen through a lens. It's like how the Norskins, not all their interpretations of the dark gods are actually the dark gods. They might actually just be spirits.
Yeah. Anyway, off the topic of GW triggering everyone at once.
General of the armies, his uniform.
Yep.
It's surprising. I'm surprised he doesn't have like a horde of Goering style medals. Like if you're gonna show incompetence, I think he should have like them bedecked like a Goering.
They later
or like a Brezhnev.
They later add that in various bits, but yes, it's actually fun that the Estates General can actually remove an Archon.
Oh yeah. Have they ever actually done that though?
Yes, they have.
They did that
to
that.
Archon Alessandro.
Oh yeah. The one who tried to use the militia during the early part of the Third Succession War, and it went horribly wrong.
Sort of, yes. And also, he's the one that tried to kill Katrina, and he's part of this other stuff, and like there's a lot of stuff involved with that.
So they actually were able to do something.
It's a book topic stuff that eventually ends up with him getting deposed. So
it's the estates are 20.
Yeah.
They meet every spring. And in times of crisis, they choose to convene closer to the scene of events, which means sometimes they have actually been shot and murdered by Koreans.
Yes.
Initially it was supposed to be an advisory, but they've gained more.
For example, they once met on Grade X to be near the ill-fated planet of Beta Regulus II, where a cataclysm had literally disintegrated the world, killing 4 million.
Yeah.
I mean, how the fuck did you disintegrate a world at this point?
Well, you see, what happened was Comstar was experimenting with a large antimatter reactor, and well,
Okay.
Not every egg, you have to crack a few. You have to crack a few eggs in the mother of all omelets, Jack. I'm just now envisioning the equivalent of Senator Armstrong and Comstar, and it's fucking hilarious. It's fucking hilarious.
It is pretty great.
Fuck this jihad. I just want you dead. But yeah, the estates actually have power. They actually have kicked out an Archon recently.
Yes.
The main provinces, there's the Federation of Skye, which is your Scots.
Yes, they are.
Although they're now led by the Lestrades, aka some weird Italian people.
Yeah, Alessandro Lestrade was an Archon. He's like one of the few non-Steiner Archons.
And on top of that, they're very, very industrialized because it was the core of the shipping, the most profitable of the shipping ones.
They also call their subdivisions shires.
Yeah, which is a bit silly.
It's Battletech, of course.
Virginia
it's a bit silly.
Shire is the poorest of the three. There's Ronshire. Where's the other one? Virginia Shire. Come on, where's the four? There's one more.
Skyshire, I think.
Skyshire, yep. There's the Tamar Pact, which there are only 4 planets. They've been reduced quite a bit, and they're very, very jingoistic.
They're actually Tamar domains and
revanchist. That's what I mean.
Yeah, revanchist. They've lost a lot of the worlds.
They use shires as well.
They have more than four. They have more than four worlds. They started as four worlds.
Ah. Get bent, Free
There's
Sky.
the Tarmar domains and then Trellshire. Yeah, Free Sky tries to rise up occasionally. Sky all the once in a while tries to leave the Commonwealth because they have Hesperus, and so they're also one of the more economically developed regions of the Commonwealth because they're really close to Terra. So they basically will throw hissy fits every once in a while and be like, "We want more representation. We want more of this," and then the central government tells them, "No, fuck off." And so then they try to leave, and then they get their asses kicked by the Combine again, and they come crying back to the central government.
I imagine that Hesperex is garrisoned by all people, so they can't pull a funny there.
Usually, yes.
And last but not least, Donegal, which was the third. It's the richest in resources, but economically poor.
Yes.
Basically, its big money is extraction.
Yeah, they also talk about like the weird ethnic mix around this, where they're talking about there's Coventry and Alantron, which have a lot of Italian, German, Eastern European, but also a lot of Africans and Black Americans. There's a decent amount of Chinese, and of all things, New Zealanders, South Africans, and Australians.
That's them trying to be funny and weird.
And I like it because there's an actual planet named Australia.
Yeah.
It's and it's an important mint and stock exchange in the.
No, my favorite planet is there's a planet called Hot Springs.
Yes, there is. There's a planet called Hot Springs. There's also Anywhere and Nowhere and Here.
Played college ball, you know, at some cushy social generals academy. Tried to mar War College. I'm just envisioning, rather than nanomachines, he managed to hijack a clanner fucking
Blackjack School of Combat. He's in a fucking elemental. Like
he managed to kill a clanner and steal their elemental.
He managed to successfully bat-chow an elemental in a wrestling match and defeat them.
Yeah. Making the mother of all omelets here, Steiner. he's like part of the Tamar pack trying to revolt.
Because the funniest thing is that the first intersphere battle suits come from the Commonwealth. So, one of them.
I kind of like canonically our stupid version of Armstrong.
Could work, yes.
He wants to nuke. He knows about Comstar's insidious nature, so he wants to nuke technology to zero to save the fucking humanity.
Yeah. So they go into
the judiciary, basically their legal court system.
The internal politics, as well as
each individual planet has its own legal system.
Yes, it does.
They can eventually reach what's called the Planetary Supreme Court.
There's also a lot of other kind of like groups. There's a lot of
it's a federalized legal system. It's similar to the United States legal system.
There's also a lot of issues in politics because like there's what's known as the homeless or the dispossessed, which are a bunch of they technically have seats in the Estates General, but they don't actually have planets.
Internal politics and policy. The articles is acceptance. Yep.
Yeah.
The Commonwealth expects its member planets to enforce all laws and passed by the Archon. Yep. I actually think it's kind of closest to the U.S. in terms of at least its legal system.
Yeah.
Though not technically a tyrant, Duke Caleron of Virtue was a hedonist of the First Order, as were many of his supporters. While experimenting with recreational drugs, he and his companions overdosed to the point of psychosis. In their drug state, they carried out several hellish offenses against the citizenry. The Archon immediately sent troops to arrest the Duke and to protect the citizens of Virtue.
They also talk about like
basically, if you abuse the rights of the citizens, the Archon can come in and kick your ass.
Yeah. Most of the isolated worlds see the Tharcad government as little more than a distant body that takes its taxes and occasionally sends an official to say, "Hey, how's it going?" Yeah. And then you've got these fucking goat herders on like Here or Hot Springs or Goat Path that are like, "Who the fuck are you?"
I'm envisioning Planet Goatmouth. It was formed by originally. I'm envisioning Afghani shepherds. Well, you know, Afghani people.
It's just an Afghani shepherd society that exports rugs.
Well, what happened was during the Succession War, they had minor, like it's in Donegal. You know, it was a little more industrialized before the Succession War. Now they're back to kind of pastoralism, and you have to actually send technicians to manage the jump points off planet to export
Yeah.
their rugs and cheese. They mostly sell goat cheese, rugs, and the opiate the alien opiates, because that's the biggest crop in Afghanistan actually, is opium,
Of
because
course it
it
is.
grows everywhere. Like
Anyway,
the poorest of fucking land can grow opium usually.
yeah.
It's kind of amazing in that kind of way.
Yeah. Anyway, but they can go on about like that they've got a civil service and they've got like a bunch of
Oh, there's political parties, but it's more like the old term for political parties. Like
yeah,
actually, it's closest to the French in that way, where they're more club, or the Austrians. It's more clubs, where
yeah,
we
like Free
mostly just
Sky.
have interests. Yeah, we just have interests. We're not really politically. We don't give a crap. We just care for ourselves.
Yeah. There's a civil service, of course, and of course there's the planet of Kukin's Pleasure Pit, which is actually a renamed of an original planet, and it has a fun flag that's literally just Kukin's with an exclamation point. That's their flag.
Here is
I'm
a minor
serious.
official in the Lyran Commonwealth civil
They have a
service.
Karen haircut.
The Karen haircut's unfortunate, but this is the '80s where it's less horrific.
Yeah.
I like the attempt to to make a sci-fi version of
Right.
the three-piece suit.
Yeah, I know. It's actually kind of nice. It's pretty neat looking too.
Basically, it's how can we make a three-piece suit look sci-fi? Oh, well, we just changed the vest component to look more
To
like,
be more of an overvest than like
yeah.
a yeah.
So
Which
yeah,
you
the
know,
civil service was not actually officially created until the late 28th century.
yeah, it was just kind of
They didn't need it. Like corruption, who cared? We make so much money.
yeah. Then they kind of go into restructuring
This is
it.
where you send people that you don't want.
Yeah. Then
It's
then
the
they kind of
only
talk about like
representative.
the
So yeah.
overt political goals. So Katrina Steiner basically looks to try to reunify the Star League is what they want to get.
Yeah.
Now, the other four successive states rejected the ceasefire, of course. The other three replied proposal for an economic free-for-all would play into the hands of the Commonwealth because they have a industrial base like hell. And the Free
And
Worlds
that's
League's like,
why, yeah.
yeah, no, we
Well,
don't
the
want
Free
that.
Worlds League is you really think we're gonna trust you?
Yeah.
And
Then
the Draconis are like, no, unless we roll.
no, unless we roll, we don't care.
And the Capellans are more like, yeah, no. Yeah,
There's a few other like stuff where they're talking with like
Davian
the Free
though
Worlds League.
bites, and that's where the alliance starts coming in.
Yeah, they bite a little bit on that. They talk about the general nature is that the Davians publicly aren't very open about this. Privately, Katrina and Hans get along quite well and actually start to hash out an alliance.
Katrina, corruption killer Steiner, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, if you're wondering, the big reason the free world, that's how Steiner hates the Free Worlds League. Yeah, they have their own legal systems and stuff, but they have a unified economic system. Free World League, not so much,
Yeah.
baby. It's whatever goes, because it's a free affiliation of planets, and
Yep.
because of that, there's different. They can't actually get the economic control. Not only control, but they can't even fucking figure out how they're gonna sell things on these planets,
Half the time, yes.
because because of the way their
They're
economic
not
systems
part of the
work are
league.
different.
So there's protectionism there too.
And that's another thing. The Mechs traditionally basically tax anything that's not theirs.
Yeah. If we go through the rest of this though, because there's still a lot of this book to cover, and I do
Capellans
want
and
to cover.
Lyrans don't really argue too much. That's a very interesting Capellan soldier though.
Yeah, it is. The Federated Sons.
Nerd.
The Federated Sons is Hans says, "I want to bang your daughter," basically.
Yeah, the higher ups like each other. The other two, they don't actually hate each other too much.
Yeah,
But
it's
it's
like, "Can
like
I marry your daughter?" And it's like, yes." And there's actually a picture of her on a subsequent page.
Draconis Combine. Yeah, they fight a lot and they hate each
The
other quite a bit.
periphery, Hendrik Grimm the Third is out there, and that Red Jack
He
Ryan,
was a
they fucking
guy.
hate him. Yeah,
Grimm was a guy, and he kind of went on to make his own thing.
Yeah, Grimm actually founded the Oberon Confederation, which is an actual like pirate republic monarchy thing.
That's why they don't like him, because he was a
Yeah, well,
former Lyran.
yeah. And well, he's descended from former Lyran. Anyway, the main thing too is that Red Jack Ryan is kind of annoying, and the Circinus Federation is a group of pirates as well that are awful, and no one
Yeah, the Lyrans tend to
likes
hate
them.
piracy in general, so that's why they usually go out in there to fight.
Everyone hates pirates. Pirates are irritating and
But the
potentially
Lyrans more
lethal
than
to entire
normal.
planets.
Lyrans more than
Uh,
normal though, since that's kind of their entire history is usually fighting pirates.
Comstar has excluded planets from communication for a few years once in a while. They uh, the funniest thing is that the I love this, but the exclusion of Thorcad in 28-23 came in retaliation for the Estates General's insistence that all property owned by Comstar be taxed like that of any other quote unquote business. In reaction, the Wise First Tech, they didn't have the titles fully worked out here. Toyama shut down the Comstar facility on Thorcad until the Steiner government repealed the edict taxing Comstar property. The exclusion order against Thorcad was lifted in 24. Oddly enough, the representatives of the Estates General seem to have accomplished more during the exclusion than in any session before or since, probably because they were free of distracting communications from their homeworlds and therefore could just actually just talk and get things done.
Yeah. Rumor has it
Uh,
that some representatives were visibly depressed when the Comstar
yeah.
facility opened again.
Occasionally, Archon will try to kidnap and surveil our personnel, and we do the same thing to them. That's just
Yeah,
the nature.
basically, they're not really super concerning other than, oh, never mind.
Comstar, yeah, Comstar is not really doing a lot of things where it's like this. Some of this could
They're
get kind of
mildly
bad.
concerning because of their economy base, and they've done a couple of probing into their businesses.
And there might be third parties fucking around with in the shadows.
Yep.
But yes, the Archons
Here's the gal that Hans wants to bone.
and also will launch the most famous wedding gift in all history, where Hans proclaims, "For you, my darling, I give you the Capellan Confederation," and then declares war, the Fourth Succession War. While, by the way, Maximilian Liao is in the room at the wedding. And the
Amazing.
China itself is on the China. Hans, being a fucking absolute mad lad, printed out his entire invasion plans in the dots on the in the patterns of the China work without labels on it. It's literally there for plain sight because he's just being a fucking dick. So because you look at it and like, oh, that's pretty star patterns. Oh, that's pretty lines. That's all that. And then it's like, oh, you look closer, then you realize on my fucking plate is my invasion plans for your worlds. You're fucked. Hans is such a dick.
Yep, and one of the reasons Katrina is pretty okay with the arrangement is she's really protective of her daughter.
Yeah.
And Hans has been proven to be a pretty good manager of his own holdings.
Yep. In
On
any
top of that,
case,
it's just financially beneficial. Like, the two can work
yeah,
together. They get each other's tech, and they get an entirely new market because those poor as shit worlds in the Federated Suns, oh, that's open market, baby.
yeah. Also, there are people against this, namely Frederick Steiner, who's the one that is the most likely to lose out.
That's the guy who also fucks up everything, isn't he?
Somewhat not. He kind of well, he was a friend of Alessandro somewhat. He was kind of the military muscle behind his political. He's one of the few good Steiner generals. Military genius, really.
I mean, that's not hard to say when look at the other special needs people you're.
I mean, no, like even by like other Star Nation standards, he's a fucking military genius. He's
Well, that's
just
why he's
kind
allowed
of
to stay.
not good at
Yeah.
politics.
Lyran Intelligent Corps, which was founded
It's split.
early.
Yeah, yeah. Founded early in the reign of the first Steiner.
They're doing good work.
Yeah. There's 6 major branches. Logren is anti-terrorism. Loki is their terror team. There's propaganda. Then there's espionage branches, which is Bondians, most infamous for assassinating a ruler of the Combine, infiltrating a spy into his group of mistresses.
And
Mole
they
Hunt,
also mole hunters.
yeah,
The Loki is the most well-trained terror unit.
they are. Loki is basically the like every successor state has a group that is like Loki, where Loki's job is to cause trouble. For either in the Commonwealth to justify actions, or outside of it to terrorize their enemies. So they're the ones that do all the false flag bullshit, and
Yep, Frederick and Katrina are both beloved by the military, hence why there's tensions.
yes. And then
There's
there's the
also
Norn,
DC, which is
uh,
it's their secret
diplomatic corps.
diplomacy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the Norns.
Alessandro Steiner, former Archon, right? All that. There's a lot of that. Royal Court is, of course, a couple of factions. The Alliance, Anti-Alliance, is Aldo Lestrade, not Alessandro. Alessandro is a different guy. Fuck. Because Aldo is the one that was actually the one that was working around. So the Lestrades were behind Alessandro, basically.
Yeah.
In any case, the Patriot faction
They're
thinks
also
that,
currently the Patriot faction's main proxy.
yes, mostly because it's like, go fuck yourself. We don't want to merge. Then
And there's operatives that Comstar is talking about. It's mainly just for the meta plot purposes, if you want to go into that.
And then there's a picture of a Logren anti-terror person.
That's what their anti-terror units look like, huh?
Yeah.
Dead or alive, you're coming with me.
SL officers, also known as strategic local, but often called.
She's not a robot, but she is
She's
a
got
cop.
She's got a
complete cop.
She's got a taser gun that just shoots energy at people, which is fun.
I just realized that this looks like a Cyclops uniform for the X-Men.
It does, doesn't it?
Did it? Yep. But yeah, the States General. There's 20 members of the community. They have They have some pretty ambitious plans.
The steering community, yes. They kind of want to get more say in actual power compared to the Archon. The thing is that they want a true democracy, or at least an oligarchy.
It's more the latter. So the main strength is that the popularity of the Lyran Commonwealth, like, they're internally stable, their economy's booming, they have a strong ally in the form of the Federated Suns, they have a lot of things going for them. The problem is that because of their federation, a Commonwealth, a confederated series,
their control isn't always the strongest over their individual worlds.
If some of them get antsy, like what the Temars eventually do. Although in their defense, they got destroyed by a bunch of clanners. I don't blame them.
Yeah.
And on top of that, there's some occasional separatist movements. It's mainly from Sky for no reason.
Well, it's because Sky has always been the most independent.
Which is funny because they were the core of the original, but okay.
Yeah, well, then it moved to Donegal. Donegal's now the most powerful.
That would probably do it. Oh yeah, because of the Marsdens getting destroyed.
Yes.
So yeah, they're still a little salty about that. On top of that, again, while Katrina's done a pretty good job at cleaning out the dead wood, the military likes her, but not all of them, and a big portion of them are those social generals we keep mentioning. You know, the good old boys club. You're really going to get rid of our grift and prevent my son from actually becoming a colonel? Okay. Hey, Frederick, I'll support you on the next bill in the estates.
Yeah.
So that's kind of that's a big issue, is their army is very politicized. They have friends in high places, and because of that, they don't need to actually perform as well as they just have to do kind of mediocre, and that's all they really need to do.
Then, of course, we get into like their
look at that smug.
Oh,
I know. Yeah.
Oh, that's a reaction face right there. That's a hooray face right there.
Oh, hooray!
But then they get into like religion.
If to stay. I just realized this kind of looks like a Sukhoi. This looks like a Sukhoi with the wings not backwards.
Yeah.
Doesn't it look like a sci-fi
version it kind of does.
Sukhoi?
Like the SU-47, yeah.
Yeah, I like it. So, Judaism. Oh no, the economic powerhouse. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no.
It could be worse.
Yeah, I mean I haven't seen any happy merchants yet, so that's good.
Their most prominent contribution is usually poetry in Hebrew or Yiddish.
Oh wow, Yiddish is still around, huh?
Yeah,
All right, so yeah, they're pretty often used. They're not socially pariah. It's a combination of orthodox set of beliefs, so the more conservative strain, and neo-Hasidism, which I think you're happy about. Don't you want an even more radical batch of Hasidic Jews?
Jesus Christ.
Don't you want them to be even more reactionary and go back to the real old? Do they have a Kohen Gadol? Do they have a
I
new
have no
temple?
idea.
Did they
That sounds
build a new
fucking good.
temple? Did they build a
They
new
might have.
temple? And did they
There is
sacrifice like animals?
I think there is a planet called New Jerusalem.
Oh shit, they might actually have a Kohen Gadol. And that means that they also have the new temple. They sacrifice the oh my word. Oh no. I mean
Yeah,
on the bright side they probably fight pretty well.
the best thing is that they talk about the fact that the Jewish community tends to side with the Estates General because monarchies tend to do things to Jews that they don't like. Uh,
Oh no. Oh, fun fact, did you know that the Neo-Hasidics are actually more ascetic too? So
yeah,
they're like hermits.
they're
They're
literally
hermit
yeah,
kibbutzes.
yeah,
The New Jerusalem ghetto.
yeah.
Why would it be called a ghetto? It's a fucking planet.
It's a medium-sized city on Tharkad. My bad on that.
Ah. It's alive and well in the Commonwealth though. Uh in the second in total numbers. So Judaism fucking explodes.
Well, merchants, my dude, merchants. Oh
Yep, they
God.
tend to side with the Estates General. Oh, it's like Vilnius. It's like
Yeah,
Vilnius and good old Lithuania back in the day.
yeah. Well,
The
there are a
Renaissance of
lot of
poetry.
Eastern Europeans, so these are probably a lot of Eastern European Jews.
The problem is there was a certain man with a very small mustache who
Yeah, who got
but
rid of a lot of them.
well, to give you an idea, do you want to the numbers of Polish Jews back in the day were 3.3 million. By the time Funny Mustache Man was done with them, there was like 200,000 of them left.
Yeah.
Or something like that. I could be confusing it with Russian prisoners of war, which were also similarly treated. Also, the third temple would have to be built in Israel, where the temple was built, unless they took That's what they did. They took the old wall.
They just called it New Jerusalem, and they just took the wall off the planet. Who fucking knows?
They took the wall of the planet and built a temple here. This is new Israel. I have it's neo Hasidism, so it could be just like a brand new crazy religion version of Judaism.
Yeah, the
There are over
basic
50 established religions, like the
yes, there's
Voyager Christian Church.
yes, there are. Now, the main thing is that they're usually pretty chill with each other, but there can be issues. As I mentioned, the Catholics are not exactly the most common here because there's two separate Catholic churches, which is the New Avalon and then the Roman.
Yeah, the Greek and Russian churches are a lot more common because of their
Yes,
Eastern influx.
basically the Roman Catholic kind of is somewhat.
Yeah, Funny Mustache Man managed to I think out of 3 million he got like 1.5 or 1.2.
It was pretty big. But in any case, the on the other end of extreme is a particularly distasteful sect of New Calvinism centered at New Cape
Oh
Town.
fuck Calvinism, man.
The inhabitants of this world trace their ancestry to the white South Afrikaners, instigators of one of the most repressive terran regimes of the 20th century. The New Cape Towners have retained much of their ancestors' bigotry, making the place distasteful for the vast majority of Commonwealth citizens.
The other thing I'm envisioning, oh god, like new Calvinism. So how do you make Calvinism even more extreme? Have they gone
Yeah,
like full? Have they gone like full Jovo?
I have no fucking clue. Like they don't go
Have
into
they gone
details.
full Jovo? Have they like rejected any but the one? Oh boy, I'd love to see I'd love to see the black tar heroin that probably is as a religion.
Oh yeah, there's also the Nation of Islam is alive and well.
Oh no.
So
Even though they have their own book, I'm sorry, it's like the Mormons all over again. You're adjacent.
so there's an Islamic
Anti-technological stance.
most of them didn't. Mind you, there's some other sects. Then there's
I like how they're spelling Muslims with an O.
yeah. Well, it's an acceptable pronunciation if you want to like look at it.
It feels
It's
like an
very
older
close.
spelling.
It is an older spelling, yes.
At this point, why not just call them Mohammedans? It'd be the same thing.
Yeah, which is also technically an acceptable term. It's just not used.
The Islamic faith fed slowly. Islamic people's taste. Dar es Salaam. They literally just stole the name of a city in fucking.
Yeah, they
Kenya.
did that a lot. They do that a lot in BattleTech. They just say it's a city.
The Black Muslim faith. Oh, so we got our Moorish Brotherhood. We got our Sovsits. We got our Nuwabian nation with the fucking pyramid. We got Nation of Islam, which has its own holy book equivalent, and very strongly. Oh man, there's a lot of insane things with that branch of religion.
Yeah.
There's a reason why when Malcolm X actually went to Mecca and actually did the fucking pilgrimage, he dropped that shit like a hot fucking potato.
Yeah, he did. Malcolm X's autobiography is worth a read just for like that whole section of him going there. It's like it's a fucking.
This eventual affirmation of blacks as citizens of equal worth and privilege. No, they're a black supremacist unit. A lot of them are black supremacists in nature.
Yeah.
No. They only moderated during the 70s.
Yeah. Well, this would be after a lot of moderation.
Yeah, but they're still. I don't know. Like I feel
it's
like
weird.
I feel like calling the Nation of Islam and the 5%ers and the Black Muslim faiths in general. I feel like they have the same canonicity to Islam as Mormons do to Christianity. They're adjacent, but I don't see them as because of their completely different belief system. It'd be like I'd have the same belief for Druze. Druze is a type of faith. The Alawites to a lesser degree.
Yeah,
like the Yazidis definitely.
One of my favorite things about this is they basically go with they don't really proselytize very much outside of the periphery. Which
the Muslims
tend
to be pro-Arkan, by the way.
But the black ones tend to favor the States General because they're like, fuck a monarch.
Actually, would Tamar have quite a few of them because of the?
It might have. No, it'd be more in Coventry because that's where a lot of the African diaspora went.
Well, there's also for Muslims, remember the Tamar Pact was founded by Pakistani families.
Yeah, that's true. Probably a decent amount there.
Hinduism probably is also there.
Yeah, there's about 50 of them have a similar there, and they all have their own brand.
Interesting twist if instead of the Tamar Pact being what they were, how about instead like the big religion you find here, Sikhism of all things?
I mean, they probably. I don't even know if the authors knew about the Sikhs.
True.
Otherwise, they probably would have thrown more.
I would have probably had Hinduism get replaced with Sikhism.
And then there's Buddhism, which is just kind of there.
It's just kind of there. It's not that. It's not.
This is a fun one though, and I love these guys. The One Star Faith.
Oh yeah, it's similar to the Orange Catholic Bible, which like fuses Sunni Islam and Buddhism and Catholicism in a grand book.
Oh yeah, isn't that from Dune?
It's from Dune, and there's elements of Dune here sometimes with how they write things.
Well, of course they do, yeah. But the thing with this is the One Star Faith is literally it started in 2801, where a merchant of considerable wealth is said to experience a religious revelation upon accepting an invitation to peer through a neighbor's telescope. His now famous words were that instead of seeing a myriad of stars awash in the sea of black space, I saw a single star. This one star burned blue with purity, and about this truthful star was a world, and about this world, so green and inviting, were the long-abandoned ships of General Kerensky.
So, yep, and they keep praying. Eventually, dogma grew for the search of the one star. Oh, this is like the Mormon belief in Kolob.
Yes. So they
eventually go? I feel like they should eventually
kind of
go.
They migrate around and out to the world of Halfway, and it's very weird.
So they have a puritanical attitude towards everything. In fact, more at home in the early 20th century.
And One
Star combines the slick charm of a Donegal snake oil salesman and the high-handedness of an Odessan noblewoman.
Politically, they're fanatically supportive of the Archon,
They're
and
basically
many.
evangelicals, yeah.
The funny bit too is because the group is always on alert for legislation that would hamper their right to migrate. So
Suk
they
Requiem, tantric Buddhism with Christianity.
took to Suck to That's a planet. There you go. There's also the world of Aristotle.
Actually, the Buddhism Christianity combo. I actually came up with this. I did a couple of.
Because
I
isn't
played
that
around
sort
with
of like
alternate religion ideas.
because
One of the ideas I came up with was called Ashtamarga Dharma, which is Eightfold Path, where they believe that
Jesus was like a reincarnation of the Buddha?
they're seen as the twin prophets in a way because of that. Yeah, basically
Ah,
Buddha
yeah.
paved the way, and then Jesus came back to finalize the doctrines.
Yeah,
So
like Jesus was one of the saints
you
that
combine
comes
both
back
of
or
them.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
That's
basically Jesus takes a secondary role and is called the greatest of the bodhisattvas. Yeah.
yeah.
And if they continued and like Islam would have came around at the same time, the faith probably would have interpreted Muhammad as being the third of the great
Yeah.
bodhisattvas. Like there would have been a lot of
Yeah,
syncretism.
they would have yeah, so that's like a highly syncretic faith.
Yeah, it
Uh
was an idea I came up with, and this is kind of that, but they went with the haha funny tantra.
yeah,
Like tantric
the
just means repetitive, like you do
yeah,
mantras and repeat.
that's
But
you
it's
well
also
that
known
would
for the
actually the sex is what it's known for, but yeah, the tantra of that it could literally just be singing or dancing
it's
or worship
repetitive
with over.
singing, dancing, and speaking. So
That would actually work really well with a lot of Catholic rites when you think about it.
it actually reminds me of the crazy
That's
Pentecostalism. I'm just
that's where like
envisioning
the
them
rosary.
phrasing with this. Yeah,
I mean, the rosary is basically just a tantra when you think about it. It's repetitive prayers as you're using the beads to count it.
I'm envisioning what they do is they have a liturgical language based on like Avestan or in the Vedic script kind of way.
Yeah, that's kind of wild. That's
I
fun.
love it. It feels like a Malabar church.
Yeah, there's also kind of it's been relatively harmonious,
A lot of
but
clanners fell into one star.
yes, they did because it's basically saying that because remember they're Krensky. They're basically it's worship of Krensky, and also the clanners have their own sort of faith similar, which is known as the Way.
There's also the worshippers of Great Delphi, which basically a mystery cult. Mystery cults are starting to come back.
Yeah, I do like that they do a few other religious. The religious tension though is mostly on Bolin, which is the issue of there's the one star faith and then there's the Muslim community there, and the Muslim community is not very happy about the one star faith being there,
Because
and I
of
don't
their
blame them.
high-handed. Yeah, because the one star, they're basically the worst example of evangelical Christianity in a way.
Oh yes, they are.
Like they said, the slick charm of a snake oil salesman and the high-handedness of a noble woman.
Yeah, then they got a few legends and talks about like that and blah blah blah.
Yep.
But basically, they talk about the fact is that there's always at least some religious confrontation in the Commonwealth to some degree. But the fact of the matter is that religion doesn't have a very dominant nature because they're businessmen at heart.
They're businessmen at heart, and they're relatively tolerant. Yeah.
Yeah.
The diversity of religion it doesn't cause too many frictions. It's just occasionally with more
Here's
radical.
a better picture of Katrina, by the way, on the next page.
You know, I can see why. Yeah, I get why Hans was like, you know what?
I'll fuck your daughter. Yes.
Because they both look about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like her
And
uniform, by the way.
Yes. She was a mech pilot, if I remember correctly, and then her daughter was an infantry officer.
Yep. There's a reason why she has strong support in the military, and it's kind of why her cousin, half brother, Frederick, he can't do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Katrina basically has instituted a bunch of reforms as well to the military, which has both been popular and unpopular. As they go through here, the main thing is that the Lyran helmet is usually smaller than most of the other ones. Hesperus is
the
the huge
troubles
thing.
of the Lyran military can be summed up by two ancient sayings: too many chiefs, not enough Indians, and war is not a tea party.
Yeah, top heavy.
Oh, this reminds me of remember in the Victoria books by that crank William Lind?
Yeah.
Remember the Neo Confederacy and like Rumford and company? noticed how they basically played up the genteel aristocrat and didn't do shit like planning?
Yeah,
Same vibe.
that's kind of same vibe. Yes, mechs are brightly polished and painted and all that, and it's just like, yeah,
Soon these powerful social generals decided as generals they should wear military regalia and mingle with. I thought that was the kind of the point, though.
it was, yes, but it's that they went a little far on that. Like, let's be fair.
Well, in this case, it's because a lot of them are noblemen, and they usually only, manage militia, occasionally local guardsmen.
Yeah,
They played soldier, plotting parades and designing elaborate and impractical uniforms. Yeah?
yeah,
Formation marchings.
yep.
The influx of social generals and the bestow of promotions as if they were party favors quickly resulted in a top-heavy military structure.
So who the fuck's in charge becomes a very real issue in the Lyran Commonwealth.
Good
Because
officers were
whatever,
not recognized for their achievements. Yeah. I mean, this was kind of always a problem, but before Katrina, like the dark 40 years, it got really bad.
yes. Now the thing is that the Lyrans really have a lot of. They're third in numbers, but they've got a huge economy. They also are starting to shake off their problems, and the other thing is that usually they have heavy mechs. They don't go for anything light at all, and this is where the meme of the scout lance of Atlas is, because legitimately there is probably a Steiner general who thought it was a good idea that we just do recon and force with Atlases. What could go wrong?
Oh my god, I kind of love their military because it reminds me of the Colonel Blimp comics,
Yes, it is. It is
where it's
basically the Colonel.
like God, sir, I believe that we should expand the army because the enemy knows we shall expand the army, and thus we should expand the army to counter his knowing and his expansion of the army based on his knowing that we're expanding. That's an
Yes.
actual comic.
And again, the Lyrans also are the ones that are rich enough and have enough of an industrial base that they can actually field the most assault mechs of any of the successor
And
states.
their logic is everything's a nail. Just send a big hammer.
Just send a hammer. So like Atlas's Zeus, the Zeus mech is one of their kind of in-house designs.
And again, with social general, if you really wanted the Lyrans to kind of have problems, I'd model them on Third Republic France. Do you want because they're design bureaus. Oh,
yes.
so okay. You want to know why the MAS 49 was released in 49?
Yes, because of issues not only from the the Second World War, but also because of issues with they wanted to redesign the rifle again.
Well, okay. Here's what happened. So the French always struggled to find a new rifle to replace the Lebel, and
Yes,
eventually they had several, but they still were using Lebels.
Yeah, they had the Berthier. They had the Moss 36.
They had three different rifles, and then imported quite a bit. So what they were thinking was, okay, so we need a new rifle.
We want a semi-automatic rifle, and we also want
two types. The Colonial rifle, which is a standard bolt action, which eventually became the MAS 36. That one wasn't
which
too
is a very good rifle. Yeah, very good rifle actually.
Wasn't too controversial. It took a little bit of fighting to get it pumped out, and one of the big problems was actually production to a degree, because A, it's a brand new rifle, and B, do you want to know what they often did? They had issues. They always hated communists to a degree, and were panicking about them, especially after the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. So what they would do, because a lot of the more skilled craftsmen and factory oversight workers, the ones that actually did designs, a lot of them were either unionized very strongly in the Socialist Party or actually communist, Party of Canada. So what they did was they would recruit them in the army, because they totally mobilized, and then they were terrified of them causing shit in the army, and some of them did. So they'd send them back to the factories and then do it again because they were causing shit in the factories. At least they were thinking that.
Yeah. In reality, they're like, "What the fuck are you doing? Why are you doing this? This is fucking."
They over mobilized, but because of that, they never got the MAS 36 in a lot. And the thing is, they were supposed to be a second line rifle given to garrisons.
Yes.
The big money train was the MAS 38. It took 2.5 years for the government oversight bureaus to stop fucking fighting over releasing it. So it started to be designed in the early 1940s. Like May of 1940, the first 100 were made. And then the Germans began to storm.
Yes. So the MAS 38...
And that's not the only one. The Samoa S40. That's one of their better
Yeah,
tanks.
like one of the.
It was
Yeah, that
designed in
was the same.
1937. Took 2.5 years of arguments and
Mhm.
negotiations between all of the factory complexes, all around Paris and around France, by the way, because the Samoa's main body was built by Renault.
Yeah.
The turret was AMX.
Oh, right. Oh
AOT,
God.
I forget, AXT
It's
designed
a
the treads.
Yeah.
They
It was
worked
a
together,
hodgepodge.
but the way the French industry worked was each part was built in a different factory by a different company. All benefited, and this applied to their Navy and Air Force. So, yeah, they could produce a lot. In tanks, they actually outproduced the Germans by, I think, 10%.
Yeah. The problem is that one of those factories goes, the entire production line's fucked.
Yep. And on top of that, it took forever for them to argue. And that I would have that be a Lyran problem.
It actually isn't because of Hesperus. Hesperus basically.
That's because they have their own version of Paris, because that's what Paris was.
Yeah, like there
Their
are
their main tank factory
various.
complex was in Paris.
Basically, how Battlemechs are often made is that you have a factory complex for them on a different planet. Hesperus is notable because it has like at least 4 or 5 separate mech assembly facilities. Where the point, so for example, Hesperus can basically make everything needed to make a mech in house. They don't have to import extra parts elsewhere. Defiance Industries is incredibly strong and has their own in-house designers, and also does license building, and also does all those things. So not only do they make parts for like every other major mech manufactured in Lyran space, but they also make all the weapons for it, and they also make all the other parts, so that you can actually build a mech with import parts at Hesperus and do the final assembly there, or you can ship parts from Hesperus out and about, or you can make them in-house on Hesperus.
So they have they have a similar problem to the Florios. The
Somewhat,
Florios of
yes.
Sicily basically controlled every aspect of their industry, focused on one thing. In this case, they were a shipping company, so they founded an iron foundry just to get the metal from it. They didn't care about exporting and expanding it. They actually made a ceramics factory just to provide cutlery and stuff. Well, no. The iron foundry was for silverware and pots and pans, as well as the basic steel stuff for their ships. The fucking ceramic factory was just for the dishes for their ships. I'm not
Yeah,
kidding. All of their industries were designed on the shipping industry, which relied
that's
on older
Hesperus.
ships.
It's almost entirely, it was entirely a military manufacturing planet, and then it became a battle mech manufacturing planet.
Which means
Uh,
if you actually take Hesperus, they're fucked.
well, Hesperus, as mentioned, is 30% of the entire production of the Commonwealth in
Yeah,
mechs.
they're fucked.
It's about 10% of the entire inner sphere's production lines.
Yeah,
It is
and they'll get fucked
incredibly
if it gets
immense.
taken.
Yes, which is why there's been so many battles and raids on Hesperus.
See, that the same thing happened in Paris, by the way. Fun fact.
Yeah.
Uh, I'll get into it off stream. It was an interesting timeline. Look up a blunted sickle, where the German Operation Sickle Cut fails because they used the dial instead of the assault. They used the assault plan instead of the dial, so
Yeah.
their lines were shorter.
In any case, they go on about uniforms
Uniforms,
as
which
well.
yeah, there's a lot of uniforms, a lot of dead wood, so there's a lot of
Yeah.
designs.
Yeah, there's a lot of there's
Senior
their rank structure.
officers. So they have different lines. If the
Yes.
officer is not taking a form in battle, he wears the senior officer uniform.
Yes, they do. They have very elaborate uniforms. Um
Ranks in
and of course,
LCAF is similar to German's army.
yeah, it is basically like that. There's about 15 million in service, which you think that's a lot of people, and then you're like, oh wait,
For
right,
the
Battletech.
Innersphere, yeah, this is like the Innersphere is small, but 15 million. To give you an idea, the United States, if we were in a death war, could mobilize double that. If we were in a death war, I'm like World War II level bad.
Yeah, like the people underestimate what industrialized and centralized societies can mobilize, which is one of the reasons why feudal armies were smaller, was because it's
It would
incredibly
destroy the economy.
decentralized. It's not that it would destroy the economy. It's that it was incredibly decentralized, so that you actually didn't have that many people that were mobilized at any one time. Uh, Most people forget that most levies were actually semi-professional soldiers. They were basically like the equivalent of your National Guard. It was people that would volunteer to actually learn how to fight.
Yep, you'd
And
go to the muster field, train the basics, and you'd stick around, and that'd be what you
yeah,
did. And if there wasn't a war, you usually ply yourself as a mercenary or ship captain guard.
or you'd just have your other job
Yeah, if you
because
have one.
if you had one, or if you're sometimes you would have full-time professional soldiers as well.
By the way,
Mostly those were
they go
mercenaries,
into
but
strong detail about the different ranks because, again, these are your allies. Like, remember, Federated Sons are the poster boys, so they
yeah,
go into a little more detail about the different ranks.
yeah, they do, and they go into like what is the actual like talks about all this. They even go into they have
That's an
night
armored vehicle
vision
crew. Yep.
goggles and all that. Yeah,
Yeah, they're very luxurious. It's just the brass and anything above NCOs are usually not very good.
yeah, like the Lyran dress uniforms are fucking nuts.
Here's an Arcturian Lancer. Not a bad uniform. Kind of reminds me of a Xeon soldier on the budget.
The pale green of his helmet means he's attached to a Sky Ranger mech unit.
Yep, that's another thing. Variety of colors because
Yeah,
it allows you to know who's who. Like, look, here's a Goering, here's a
yeah,
Rufus, here's a Blimp.
yeah. Then you get the warrant officer ranks and all that, and I do like this dress uniform. It is kind of fun.
Yeah, it's nice. It's pretty. Like it feels like a
It's got the
sci-fi
weird
thing.
side cape too. Like it's not a full cape; it's a side cape.
Yeah, it feels real. Like you could
Yeah,
actually see a military use this.
you could because usually when I think about it like that, it's they've got the cape, but you don't want the cape to be over the medals. So some brilliant idea what somebody had was just pin my cape to my side instead, and then that just became the fashion.
Boeing scandal of 3025. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, you mean like how the 737 Max had all those scandals
Yeah, yeah,
because of
yeah,
that?
yeah. There's a lot of scandals in Lyran industry and in BattleTech in general. There's an entire Boondoggles book which covers a lot of those sort of things. We might
That's
go into
that's
that.
something we might go into eventually. So the structure of
Yeah,
the LCAF,
yeah,
military education. Basically, you go into boot camp.
yep. There's military education. There's a Rep Dep, which is replacement and depot. There's the Judge Advocate General's office, which is just military.
MPs,
Yeah, MPs. There's the
quartermasters,
Quartermaster Corps,
transport,
Transport,
military
Military
intelligence,
Intelligence, Strategies and Tactics Division. Then the Commonwealth Navy,
which is your
Aerospace.
jump ships, aerospace force, reserve, which
Then
is
there's
your
Reserve,
secondary,
which is garrison troopers and all that. House
noble
Troops
house
Liaison,
forces,
which goes to private military forces. Through the
and
Commonwealth law
mercs.
states that all private military forces are free and independent of the LCAF. The Steiner family has always maintained strict control over all troops in the realm. House liaison troops act as the buffer between these and the private troops, allowing them at least the illusion of independence. In reality, they're part of the military. On paper, technically they're not. In reality, they are very much integrated into the military.
I kind of just noticed that. Yeah, it's just the general. It's just the dead wood. If they had officers worth a crap, I think they'd do fine.
Yeah. Then they have mercenary troops liaisons, which is very standard.
I'll be honest. In real life, these guys would eventually have won.
Yeah, well, they kind of did.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out that like if you didn't use idiot balls, they
Yeah.
probably would.
They then go to all of the list of
Commonwealth
all
Army.
these
There's a
units.
lot of units and the details about it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so if you want to run like I want to be the 22nd Sky Rangers, here's how you do that. Here's what your experience level for your pilots would be. Here's all this sort of stuff. The typical Commonwealth
Or
unit.
if you're crazy, you could go infantry.
Yeah.
You
I
could
mean,
just
you
be
can
straight up
use infantry and BattleTech. Infantry and BattleTech can actually be incredibly dangerous, especially because they can do anti-mech attacks, which can blow off limbs, namely legs. They can also carry things like portable medium lasers, or oh boy, field artillery can get nuts. AC-20s, yes, you can have an AC-20 behind a building.
I'm envisioning a scenario where you're fighting what's it called? A lance is a small unit of mechs.
Yeah,
Your orders are to stop this probing attack with with what you have, which you don't have a mech.
you've got infantry. That's actually the plot of the first Grey Death Legion book. Is basically how do you kill mechs and you don't have mechs?
Like mainly because the unit that the unit that you're liaisoned with, the mech core unit,
Yeah.
it's been damaged and they're repairing. Like they only have among them, if they scrapped
You've
all
got a
their mech.
locust. You've got a locust and a couple other light mechs, and then the rest of your stuff is just infantry and
You don't even have no, they're in dry dock because of damage. from the prior
Yeah.
fight. Like, if you're desperate, you can maybe Frankenmech one of them together to work.
Yeah.
But that's about all you get, and that basically destroys your little lance yourself.
Yeah. Well, in a pinch, you might do it.
That'd be an interesting. I think that'd be a fun little skirmish setup for those of you
Yeah.
more interested.
I think that there is a skirmish similar to that in the Grey Death Legion guidebook. Essentially, that's the thing that the Grey Death Legion becomes famous for, is that they're an integrated unit of mechs and infantry.
Look, sky units are being pissy again.
Yep.
God,
They're
at this point, you might as well just move the machine tools and fucking move them somewhere else just to cuck them to death.
yeah.
I mean,
They then
if you move the machine tools, they're fucked.
Yeah, but Hesperus is huge. It's like a continent spanning facility. It's fucking nuts.
You can do it. They're rich enough to.
Anyway, like they talk about the mechs that they like, which is that they like the commando.
Yep.
Which
Arkan,
is
I'm just going through the other ranks. I like the ranks. There's naval variations. Who cares?
Yeah.
Units.
Commandos, which is the LCAF usually doesn't have medium lances, which is why they just have a hodgepodge standard of Phoenix Hawks, Griffins, Shadow Hawks, Wolverines. It's kind of standard.
It's
now
mainly just because every hammer's every nail's a hammer.
Yeah. Now in medium mechs they don't really get it, but that's the thing. They don't really like them for whatever reason, which I don't really get. But there you go.
I'd have it just be a case of do you know how many factory plants we'd have to set up just to tool ourselves to that?
Which is funny because they made one of the better variations for medium mech designs. Like the Griffin 1S is fucking good.
Of every medium mech we make is one less heavy mech.
Yeah.
Or one less, or like two less light mech. It's the similar logic of why the Germans always put their navy as a secondary. Every ton of steel you'd use to set up a battleship, that's like a ton of steel you could have made a truck out of or a tank out of.
Yeah.
I think it's a similar logic because you can only they have the economy, but it's still you can only make so much at once, even with all of that what they got.
Yeah. So they then get
they actually have air force. They actually still have air support too.
Yeah, they do. Everybody has aerospace assets.
But the Lyrans actually still have
combined
arms.
Yes.
Yeah, they still have combined arms with it, or
rather
army
than
aviation.
Or more. Yeah, they have more army aviation rather than aerospace being doing its own thing. The other thing that they mention is that the Atlas and the Zeus are basically their main assault mechs. Heavy lances, basically no real philosophy. Just chuck them in and do them in together. Like
Zeus,
heavy
Atlas, they're fucking great.
Yeah, the Zeus is okay. The Atlas is a iconic mech. The main thing that they talk about too is that they are starting to create more mixed arm units based on the Iridani Light Horse, and they're making a couple of combat teams along the lines of the
Demolisher unit, aka the Dark Alley mugging unit.
Yeah, Demolishers are fucking disgusting. It's two AC-20s on a 100-ton tank that moves relatively slow, but it has a fuck ton of armor. So if you get in a close range fight with that, you lose. It doesn't matter what mech you're doing, you just lose that fight.
Okay, so I'm envisioning something equally sad. So you have like a lance or two of light and medium mechs, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you just hear do it up from fucking Command and Conquer as an entire squad of demolishers or platoon of them.
Yeah, like a
clank their way up the hill.
One of those AC-20s hits your light mech, you're fucking gone.
How would you feel if you're playing the game and you just saw like demolishers crest over the hill?
That's screaming, basically. They go into what people manufacture.
Defiance Industries, which they make the Zeus, Atlas, are basically
Zeus,
your heavy
Atlas,
stuff.
Patents, Hatchetman, Manticore tanks. That's just at Hesperus too.
Yep.
They're by far one of the largest one of them. They're one of the only ones that still make Atlases. Again, not true, but also true.
Later on, it's starting to be branched out. But yeah, this is where it started, and most of the production comes here. Yes. There's also Fiorillo. They have a lesser plant there.
Fiorillo has a lesser, where they just make their lighter mechs and their Zeuses. They also make tanks.
Yeah.
The Rommel and Patton, which is the difference is that the Rommel has a 20 and it has an AC 20 and a bit less armor, and the Patton has an AC 10.
Coventry Metalworks, they mostly make these things.
Yeah. Commando is good. Vulcan is good. Phoenix Hawk is actually no. Vulcan's not that good. That's actually I think that's the shitty version of the Vulcan.
These are mechs, right?
Yeah, Mechs. Firestarter is very solid. Stinger is a light mech that's very classic. Phoenix Hawk
I
is
won't
pretty
remember.
classic.
I don't know what any of them look like, unfortunately.
Bowie Industries though makes the Archer and the Marauder, both of which are very classic heavy mechs and are taken from anime designs. The Archer is a beast. It's a very heavily armored 70-ton mech with two LRM 20s and a quartet of medium lasers,
Oh,
maximum
these
armor.
guys can still make dropships too.
Yes, they can.
That's actually useful.
Dropship manufacturing isn't unusual. Warhammer and Thunderbolt.
Not an early edition where it's one of the few remaining manufacturers.
Oh, they mentioned that?
Yeah.
Oh, they do, yes.
Which makes House America's attacks against them particularly devastating.
Yeah.
Also, Coventry Metalworks had it was recently reorganized after the Trellshare scandal of 12. Duke Grantell, a former mech warrior, is expected to make further changes. I wonder what the scandal's about.
They don't go into detail. You can.
The Olivetti makes the Warhammer and Thunderbolt.
Yeah, Olivetti actually becomes one of the clan manufacturing centers after the clan invasion. They retool the lines to make clan variant versions of the Thunderbolt and Warhammer.
They found ruins of an old Star League facility.
Yes, they did.
That's how.
That's part of why. That's why they started up making it. But also, then when the clanners took over, they had a bunch of stuff ready to go to just slot into place and make Star League upgrade versions of their mechs. So
Lockheed CBM, the largest manufacturer of aerospace fighters. They make all these things. Anyway, it's experienced a serious crisis when its entire board of directors was caught embezzling titanic amounts of money.
Yeah. Then they have Tharhess, which is a newer version. They used to be a manufacturer of laser missiles. Crusaders. Now they make Crusaders.
They're flawed. The company had to recall the first 200 for a refitting of the left rear
reactor shielding panels. There's the Shiphill company.
Wait, no, I think Tharhess is a nod to the Thorak machines.
Well, Tharhess is Tharcad Hesperus Industries, basically.
Shiphill, ancient companies predate Star League. It's only barely survived. They must spend fighting off attack by enemy houses, yeah.
Hostile takeover bids. It's amazing the company has time to manufacture 3 Overlord dropships a year. Trellshire Heavy Industries is on Twycross. This is actually one of the more they make riflemen, battlemasters, and stalkers, which are all relatively good common mechs.
This firm was on probation for a time because of its involvement in the Trellshire scandal, but its probation was recently lifted.
Yes.
Red Devil, also known as the Wheeler Dealer Company that operates just this side of the law. The Red Devils is well known in the Iron Commonwealth. It's originally a technician school, but it became a weapons manufacturer later on.
And then they managed to get the license to manufacture a few other things. Military supply companies, there's a lot of them. Nagelring is one of the classic Star League academies.
Yep, it's one of the best out there.
Yep. Then there's Sanglemore on Skye, which is another Star League academy. It was the twin for Nagelring. Basically, it was the one that also allowed for naval.
Are you kidding me? The academy was so damaged it was no longer able to train naval officers. Go fuck yourself. I know for a fact you can. You'd have to make hypothetical like little vacuum fucking areas, dude. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on, dude. No, that's bullshit. That's dumb. Hey, it's the place that Duke Armstrong graduated from, the War College of Tamar.
He might have also
I'm
gone
making
to
him
the
canon now.
Academy. The Coventry Academy. Would also be a good one.
It's canon. Armstrong is now a canon Duke in the fucking Commonwealth.
So the War College of Tamar is pretty famous. It eventually becomes a clanner training school when they take over that area.
They have a lot of former Star League facilities. Wow.
Yeah, the Star League was very much because the Lions were one of the ones that quickly signed up for it, so they kind of got a lot of the academies are based on Star League.
I get the feeling that they're prestigious, but now that I'm thinking about it, we might be seeing the equivalent of the Ivy League kind of collapse we're seeing, where you're just getting kind of garbage now from them, but because of
Yeah,
the
it's a
connections.
prestigious name. Yeah,
I
it's
think
more
we're getting
networking.
it's like the Chinesium scam knives that are like, oh yeah, this high quality knife company in the 1980s went out of business like 10 years ago, but
Yeah,
it has the name. It's made from German technicians using Japanese steel in China. The
yeah.
Flight
Also,
Academy
there's
of
terror
Thorin.
attacks. Yeah, the Flight Academy Thorin. It's one of the few real like excellent academies for
It currently looks like a
aerospace.
conglomeration of half-built or destroyed buildings. Coventry
Not much.
Academy. Yep, training for mech
Very
warriors.
simple. Royal New Cape Town Military Academy.
Where
Oh,
racism still exists, how Steiner has had to route potential officers of non-white races to other academies and other worlds. This is both expensive and inefficient, or maybe you can just, as Arkin, fucking kill them. Remember,
yeah.
it's in your legal code. You
You
can
can do this.
fucking break them on your knee. That's
Yeah.
something you have to point out. Like, the government
Yeah,
explains they can.
they literally tolerate an apartheid state. Yeah,
That's stupid. That's an
I
idiot
know.
ball.
They
They
also
hate
have terror attacks.
philosophy. Just
Terror
destroy the
attacks.
fucking
They get
academy.
better. They get better after the clan invasion. You see, the racism dies out because everyone disagrees that clanners are worse than black people.
You know, the sad thing is that's exactly what happened. The Blackjack School of Conflict, only privately
Yes.
run military academy, is founded to tutor those who failed the entrance exams. Unofficial courses to deal with the shadier side of military life. It is said that going to Naeglering will ensure the graduates get a glorious warrior's funeral, but going to Blackjack ensures that you'll have the wealth to enjoy life.
No move to clean up the school because it actually graduates excellent pilots.
It's one
Like,
of the better ones,
yeah,
yeah.
it is. It's one of the better ones, and it's because it's a private academy. It's also like if you literally are just rich enough, you could just go there.
Yep.
It's
Military
useful because
Academy of Somerset. It trains mech
it's
warriors and
this
aerospace pilots.
one that's the one where our favorite guy from the BattleTech animated series is from uh Adam Steiner.
It's like a second. It's like a second.
It's like a second rate
Yeah.
like military academy. It's fun. The first Somerset Strikers and all that. Like if you haven't watched the BattleTech animated series, it's been fully restored and put onto YouTube. It's a classic piece of mid '90s, early '90s cheese animation with like really
At
terrible
some point, if
CGI.
we ever try if we ever try to riff on a fucking show, that might be
That'd
something.
be it. It is fun cheese.
The War College of Buena only recently opened. Specializes in teaching maintenance science.
And then there's the
We don't know how
Pandoran.
good they are because they just opened.
Yeah, then there's the Pandoran College of Military Sciences.
It only
And then they've
handles
got their
dropship pilots. Yeah.
list of
It's
awards.
poor, and that's kind of what limits it. Here's all the decorations: the Commonwealth Medal of Honor, the Honor of Sky,
Yeah, and then the strengths and the weaknesses of
Order of the Tamar
the
Tigers, Orders of Catherine Stein. I like the Mackenzie Hammer,
yeah, they literally give a guy a fucking hammer. I'm
Eagle's
dead
Feather.
serious. It's the actual silver block hammer weighs about 9 kilograms, and you're allowed the honor is literally you get to carry this fucking hammer at any formal event.
I'm just envisioning. I'm envisioning a particularly effective skills and tactics and strategy. I'm just envisioning like some actually somewhat competent general like wielding the hammer and actually threatening to murder his other
That's
staffing
probably why
officers.
it's there. It's literally so that you can just beat the shit out of a dumb subordinate with it.
Like, you're really telling me that you're going for an all-out offense before our mech pilots are there?
Yeah. It's literally just so you can kneecap someone.
And the dumbass subordinate's like, offense always wins, sir. We could totally do this, especially since they're not prepared yet. Bang!
We need a new subordinate.
Most Lyran memes come from it. I love it. The skill of the Steiner military is considerable, particularly in defense. Yeah, it's incompetence.
But there have been many inglorious
The
defeats.
staffers
They
are incompetent and
incredibly well equipped, but they have very few light and mobile mechs. Like again, they barely have any mediums.
It's actually
Um,
they operate kind of like the French in that they're relatively slow to react.
yeah, the
Relatively
other
slow to
thing,
react. Because they don't use light mechs and they tend to go heavy in general because of equipment. Their supply trains take longer to move. They're more sluggish, so you can actually outmaneuver them.
yeah,
Yeah, they can report it, but they'll take longer. And last but not least, dead wood at the top. A lot of dead wood at the fucking top.
and a negative
And
negative
also
feedback
corruption.
loops,
Occasionally
corruption,
massive
bribery, all
fucking
this.
scandals.
Yeah. There's also like the Archon has had to write new ethics courses for all the military academies, except of course at Blackjack,
The
because
recent
Blackjack just does their
Stilson
own thing.
incident is an excellent example of how corruption works. Stilson was able to enter Naglering Academy only after his father, Duke Stilson, made a cash donation to the local chapter of veterans of the Succession Wars. They in turn agreed to sponsor the young man. After barely graduating, he became a mech warrior in the 4th Regulars. After a year during which he had 2 accidents that landed his battlemaster face first in the dirt, Stilson was saved from dismissal after his father pulled some strings. Instead of being booted out of the military, he was promoted to captain. Another month went by, and Stilson made yet another call to his father, complaining about the heavy responsibility of leading men. No one was surprised when he was promoted all the way to lieutenant colonel, and then very shortly after to lieutenant general, less than a year after graduating from the fucking academy. This
Yeah,
circus of corruption only ended when a commander in administration got wind of what bullshittery fucking happened and blew the whistle.
yeah. Since
I mean, he's a
there's
radical example of that, but a lot of the officers either
yeah,
their father knows a guy or their brother knows a guy or they have a patron that really likes them. And because of
yeah,
that, you don't have to actually be good. You don't on average you only need to be mediocre.
yeah. Then they talk about
Average. You can be garbage and still make it if you know the right
yeah.
people.
Then of course there's some recent incidents, and they're
It's the current
maybe
entertainment
improving,
industry.
but yeah. Then they go into the fun stuff about, oh hey, it's our arts and culture and all that, which
Ironically, Alessandra had the right idea with at least reconnaissance, which has helped a bit with their reaction.
yes,
They're still garbage. Culture and arts.
yes,
They're a little more
they basically
educated.
they're a little more educated, and they have research universities, which is actually pretty important.
The Pilgrim professors.
Yeah,
Yep, basically they set up colleges. The educational system has taken a bit of a shit, but still.
it's not as bad. There's a few fun universities they talk about, which is
Hey,
the
look,
University
it's
of
it's a
Washington.
college frat initiation.
Yeah,
I like the sippy cup in the vase.
I do too.
Has 5 major universities, University of blah blah blah.
Yeah, they then go into like daily life and culture, which is sort of
Arts and
standard.
business,
Then you get this I don't even.
art
This is
academies,
some
drama
fucking
schools,
80s
fine
art.
arts. Daily life and culture. A well acquainted, remarkable contrast in the successor states. The average woman, blah blah blah. Cordless phone while riding a lumbering beast to the office, or using food grown in a garden to pay for an appendectomy performed with lasers.
Yes, this is the fun thing about BattleTech is you can have
The
that sort
old
of shit where
Battletech.
it's
This is old Battletech.
yeah, the old BattleTech had that just bizarre mix of shit where it's like yes, you can have a planet where battle mechs are made and they don't know how to do eye surgery.
No, I like the comedy though of they actually specialize in building nuclear reactors, right?
Yeah,
And everything is powered with electric, but they don't know how light bulbs work.
they don't have any light bulbs.
They,
It's
they
just they don't have a light bulb factory, and they're the nearest one is like it is just not effective to ship it, and nobody wants to build a fucking light bulb
so
factory on this
instead they
planet
use
because why?
it's done by lantern and gaslight.
Yeah, that'd be fucking cursed.
You can build a nuclear reactor for mechs, but you need gaslight. It's done under torchlight. And on top of that, they instead of cars, they use the locomotive because they do not have an effective internal combustion engine. So they have steam because the reactor, nuclear reactor allows you to build a pretty good steam turbine. So instead they use automotive carriages that are steam powered and or the locomotive. What do you think
Yeah,
of this world?
cursed. Anyway,
You like it?
Yeah. Anyway, like I need you to look at the next page because this
Public
art,
media.
dude.
Is that Ron Jeremy?
I don't know. I don't know how to describe this for anyone that's just listening. It's an 80s hair metal
It's not even hair
porn
metal.
star,
It's
like glam rock porn star band. I don't
glam
fucking
rock
know.
porn star band sounds about right.
Like it is the like they've got the fucking 70s like look down pat almost, and I just don't get it.
Like this is Fast's attempt at an understanding hair metal, I think.
Yeah,
I feel like they would do a glam rock disco.
yeah. Oh, they do mention like all the broadcast companies. The one that I love the most, of course, is the Hollow Entertainments from Kukin, because Kukin is just a fun word to say.
Sensory Cubes. Its Star Drive labels a hit with Theris and her Red Deltas, currently the hottest band in the realm. Yep. Tharkin Media Associates, known for the high quality of its products, leading to publications of book by Grafina Gerbert, the Commonwealth's most celebrated novelist. Donegal Broadcasting, DBC. I could make a joke about the BBC shielding.
The BBC, ABC, NBC, whatever. It's a broadcast company.
I could make fun of I could make a nod to the the BBC defending the MAPs, but
easy, too easy.
Too easy. Badum tish. Hollow Entertainment from Kuka. Here we go. The Pleasure Pit.
The Kukin's
Classic
Pleasure Pit
gothic romance to pornography from its Dissad division. Maki Dusad.
So they of course also have a
Hollow stations for pay-per-view. So yeah, this is where you get your Skinamax from.
It's also, which is the only way many of these hollows can be seen on some worlds. The company also is the major publisher of its pornographic books, records, and sensory discs through its Velcro Fly logo.
Love it. Love it. That's one of their big exports is porn. So societal problems, tolerant people, but not prone to irrational hatreds, discriminations because of race, blah, blah, blah. It's much less common. It's just that the Lyrans also have an apartheid planet.
Instead, it's also more class restrictions than anything else.
They also have an apartheid planet. Let's keep that in mind.
Yeah, they do.
It's the only one that does.
Some Steiner worlds have planetary free zones, regions where there's no laws and criminals can work at their trade on anyone stupid enough to venture in.
I kind of like that there are some planets where you could just do whatever. Has a very strong Shanghai vibe.
They're like Dust Ball is an example of this. It's basically a gambling planet. It's like Kukin with an edge, basically. Because Kukin's Pleasure Pit, like, let me put it like this: Kukin's Pleasure Pit is like a mix of like it's like Reno, right?
It's like Reno. It's like Reno if it focused on the cat houses. Yeah.
It's more like Reno mixed with Bronson, Missouri. It's like there are the cat houses and there are all that, but it's mostly also just a place where you'd go because it's relatively safe, and there's a lot of other shit to do. And it's very well regulated, and it's very all this.
Well, Dust Ball is where you wake up in a flop house and you find 3 dead bodies, and a cop is getting his head sawn off by a mafia member.
Yeah, and then you remember that, oh yeah, that cop's actually a stripper that you hired for your brother, but you need to go find your brother, who's currently at a gambling estate on the gills of the legal opium from that one Afghan planet you mentioned, and on a roll, and is about to probably win big, and then you remember that, oh shit, right, we need to leave tomorrow. That's the kind of place Dust Ball is. Dust Ball is the kind of place where you go and you make memories you won't forget, or you'll fucking die doing them.
So Comstar and Lyran people, yeah, they do fairly well. Blah blah blah. It's fine. Hey, look, blah, it's blah. Scientist Man.
Scientist Man.
Hello, my name is Scientist Man.
Oh, hello, Biggie.
Hey, Biggs.
Hello.
I know we've been going on for a while, but we've been enjoying this.
I would like to enjoy it too, please.
We should probably wrap this up here. The basics.
No.
Look at the balding people. Look at the hairstyle on these fuckers.
I know. Okay, what? So the hairstyle is okay. Imagine, if you will. All right. So take your classic, like man balding, shaved top head, shave the top of your head off, kind of, right? Now, keep the front fringe and let it hang down, so you've got 2 braids. That's this hairstyle.
What the fuck?
This is the most science fiction hairstyle I've ever seen in Battletech so far. And there's been some pretty fucking wild ones.
Dust Ball is also rolled by the same family as Mabatchal.
Yes, the Malthus crime family. There's It's a mafia planet, basically.
That guy is so pissed at them.
I know.
Socioeconomics.
Economics, government, political aims, the economy, blah blah blah. Then they go into like all
The
the
economy,
companies.
stupid.
And
How's
consumer
it
goods.
work? Yeah, we don't need to. The
We
only
don't
thing
need to go into it. There's a lot of detail here. There's a lot of fun illustrations.
The Duke of Hesperus II. So that's a Hesperid haircut.
That's their
style. That's the style of Hesperus and Sky. It looks like.
That's fucking cursed,
This
my dude.
man wears pantaloons and a petticoat. What the fuck?
Yeah.
It's a sci-fi petticoat. Amazing.
So the one person that I want to talk about, because we've been dancing around this the entire time, eventually, it's on page 152.
Mech Regiment. He also has that horrifying haircut. Nasan Diversified. Yeah, we're just gonna skip.
Just skip
Nasan
to
Shipping Company. I'm just showing the
marked
uniforms. They're pretty cool. Security personnel. He has an egg helmet. Aw. The mustaches are very strong in this planet.
Yeah.
Virkart. Oh. I like when they make crack meth head. Mr. Creosote slapping the butt of a waitress as the maitre d' looks on in horror as the other stripper waitress pours water on his head.
That's a dust ball moment.
The egg is landing.
The egg is landing.
The egg is landing.
Oh, the egg.
Prepare the security. Gun him down when they open the doors.
Yeah.
Personalities. Katrina. Here we go.
Egg.
So if you scroll down, we're looking for Frederick Steiner because this guy's actually rather important.
Yep. Here he is. Oh, look at that face. This is the face of a man who his life is shit.
So remember how I talked about how there's occasionally a Steiner general that matters, right? And remember how I talked about how Comstar has a weird relationship with the Lyrans?
Yeah, they get along fairly well, but they also get leery since they are the most likely to.
They also do
tech.
a lot of sub actions be in the shadows, right? So a bit after this book is released in the timeline, Frederick tries to make his play for being Archon, and he loses and is assumed dead. In reality, Comstar took him. He got taken prisoner. Comstar got their hands on him, and he'd lost an eye, and basically lost everything. Like, he's a dead man walking if he returns to the Commonwealth. They offer him a chance to have a new name, a new identity, a new life, because there's a position that's open for a military man.
This is fucked.
Yes, it is.
This is
Anastasia's fucked. Yes.
I just remember. No, I remember because of the face. It was familiar.
Yeah. So Anastasia's fucked, or however you want to pronounce it.
The winner of Tukiad.
The winner of Tukiad was born Frederick Steiner. He had ambitions to become an emperor and then nearly died over it. Well, become Archon, but what's the difference, really? He actually commands the same unit that the main character of a lot of the books, our little manlet Victor Steiner Davian, the 10th Lyran Guards, was the commander of that unit. He would end up again fighting on behalf of the entire Inner Sphere for Comstar in one of the most brutal campaigns ever known, and he won. That's how good this man was.
Yeah, now I remember. And hey, look, there's the guy that played him as a fool, Alda Lestrade.
Yes.
Very ambitious, wanted to be the power behind the throne. Did not go well for him.
No, it did not. Expert on Renaissance Italy, especially the finer points of Machiavellian politics and the lives of the Borgias.
Okay, if you knew that, Duke Lestrade, you'd also know that Machiavelli hated Mongoloids like you.
The prince is not necessarily an endorsement of those policies. It's a please do it this way so that we don't all murder you, and you don't murder all of us.
Do it this way.
Yeah, like it's an exception to all of his other works. So
yeah, it is. The prince is basically his attempt to say, like, if you're gonna be an awful bastard, here's how you should do it.
And on top of that, it was his way to get out of the doghouse because he was under house arrest at the time because
Yes, he was.
offended the sensibility of, I believe, the Medicis.
He had offended the Medicis, and he'd also offended another family. He wrote it after being subjected to the strappado, too, which causes hands to be shaky.
Pissed off a lot of high-ranking families, and that was his response to try to avoid it. Here's the Duke of Coventry.
Yeah. Does he still have the hairstyle?
He has the hairstyle, and he looks like he's on crack.
Oh, man, that is a crackhead. Oh, shit.
Very strong crackhead energy.
Then there's the Duke of Tamar.
He kind of looks like Khan Noonien Singh back in the classic Star Trek show.
Yeah, he does. And then we get Eldred Regis, who just looks very surprised.
This is him after he loses for the 80th time because he ordered them to a fucking bloodbath.
There's Margaret Atton, Duchess of Skye, who looks like somebody just farted in her presence, and she's rather offended.
I kind of wish that they removed all their economy. Crash it, no survivors.
Then we get Simon Johnson.
He kind of looks concerned.
He just looks a little concerned. Then nobody else the portrait until we get to Nandi Steiner, who just looks. I don't even know how to describe it. Really.
That is the look of a mafioso's wife.
Yeah, like a mafia wife that is also an alcoholic.
A mafioso wife who, after drinking extensively, ordered her lover to do the hit.
Yeah.
Then we get Caesar. This is the concern and relief.
Then we get the Caesar Steiner, who is just a fat boy.
No, actually, he kind of looks like a younger Donald Trump.
Oh no!
Doesn't he? Doesn't he have the same look?
Canonically, he gets assassinated in a spectacular fashion and becomes kind of a notorious, like a beloved figure for whatever reason.
He looks like young Donald Trump.
He does. He does. Alessandro Steiner is also mentioned. Then there's Jack
Nandi,
Spire.
the one who screwed it up.
Yeah, Nandi is the one who screws everything up. Anyway, then there's of course Maps.
Jack Spire kind of looks like he hung out with the founder of Comstar.
He does. I'm trying to find. Let me find the world that I want to find because I think Kukin's Pleasure Pit has a profile in this.
Yeah, because
I hope
Darkad, it's interesting. We can go into detail about each of the planets, but it's a long stream.
Kukin, I just want to do Kukin's Pleasure Pit because it's genuinely like one of those things where it's like, really?
They do give you nice little details about each planet, and I love it. Timbuktu, yep. Bonneful Harvest Gallery, Chuchki 3. Sky, Alexandria, it's probably in...
It's in the Tamar Pact. It's way down.
New Kyoto, Yed
Yep.
Preor, Tamar, Twycross, Severin, Kars, Kobe, Dust Ball, Kukin's Pleasure Pit. Here we go.
The name of the planet was taken from an infamous book written by Michael Kukin. The book described Kukin's curious life and the many people he had met and bedded. The book was so famous and popular that the planet was named after the hero's legendary mansion.
I kind of like how a bunch of people just were like, you know what? I really like the name of this Coomer book.
I know. That's why it's so stupid, and I love it.
Oh, and by the way, Dust Ball right next to it, where the elite meet, greet, and satisfy their wicked desires. Yeah?
There's a lot of most of the money earned there is
I don't
semi-legal.
remember the star class styles, but I know G is like a main sequence. I don't remember them. So, attempt to shut down the Malthus family of Dustball 20 years ago. Steiner government decided to create Kukin's Pleasure Pit to compete with them. They were making too much porn.
Yeah, it was a backwater, and then it became a tourism place because it actually is.
It's a nicer
rather nice
planet. Yeah,
it is a rather nice planet where you can go and there's complete establishments where it's like.
I like that they give star types. I wouldn't know them by trade, but I think G5 variable stands for a very similar star to our own. I believe it's a yellow dwarf.
Yeah, and then there's the planet Suk, which just has a fun name.
Suk. It has Hanson's Rough Riders.
Yeah, because it's a planet that usually gets raided by the Draconis Combine.
And Dustball is basically Mafia land.
Yes.
And that's it.
That's it. There's the back of the book. There's also the map of the Inner Sphere. There's actually a fantastic online resource that gives you a map of the Inner Sphere at various points, and you can even get an idea of how long it would take to travel across from various planet to various planet.
You also like how it shows the shading where there's conflict, so this is where the conflicts usually are.
That's the border regions, yes.
Yep. Iron Commonwealth, it gives you the family trees of all the people you need to care about. Details about the planets here, coordinates.
Yep, along with their star class.
And this gives you a bit of details, and with that, thank you for joining us on this extremely wild ride.
And extremely long ride. This is almost a 3-hour episode. I think that this is a good wrap up to the entire series of the old books of the classic Battletech house stuff. There's a few others that maybe we could cover, like there's the old Star League manual. There's some stuff about the periphery that's always fun. I kind of want to do one of the Succession Wars books or one of the historical other historical books that isn't Operation Klondike, aka.
Well, we already read that. It was painful. Anyway, we don't know what we're going to. Next week will likely, because I promised, I think it'll be another issue of Autistic Analysis where I'll actually set up a vote in the Discord, which, as I mentioned, there's a link. If you're a new person, you can click on the link. It expires within 7 days, 6 days now. And again, thank you for joining us on this extremely long ride. I very much enjoyed this book.
It is fun to read the 80s vision of a future. It really is.
It's that, and it just provides so much detail, which, let's be fair, given quite a few books we've done recently, there's been a bit of a paucity of that. If you like pure mechanics, Dungeons and Dragons is great. But if you want that, but also world setting, this is a good one. This is especially a good one if you like minis. I enjoyed
Battletech has a lot of stuff. We might actually I think what might be fun is to do the newer Battle of Tukiad book, which covers, like, it has a bunch of fluff on the actual battle. It has a bunch of scenarios that you can play through, and then it also has descriptions of various mechs that were fielded in the fight.
New Kyoto needs to talk about New Kyoto. Unfortunately, it's just been too long of a
New Kyoto is New Kyoto. Like, if you want to, again, if you're interested in anything about Battletech, I highly recommend you go to cerno.net and type in whatever the fuck you want.
I also have provided a link. Good. I have provided a link because they actually are selling a slightly revised version of this, apparently, in a couple places.
Yes, Sarda is not a bunch of cucks. They tell you to read the main material, and we're not going to show it all, you bitch.
Well, yeah, of course I tell you to. No, Sarna still has all of your stuff. Sarna still has all the stuff. Like, they might not give you extreme detail on everything, but it's a wiki.
Get you to know. But like I said, up next we'll probably go back to Autistic Analysis because I did promise to do that. After that, anything kind of goes. I'm actually thinking about I actually am thinking about doing more Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay because there's a lot of cool stuff in it. We'll have to curate it though. There's a couple of really fun books. I actually think a fun one might be there's a first edition adventure in Prague, which is really dumb because you actually have to deal with the nonsense that a cult of Nikoho would have been. Yes, there's an old adventure module in first edition Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay where you have to deal with the cult of Nikoho.
If we're gonna do old adventure modules, we have to do one of the original Vampire the Masquerade adventures.
Sure, as long as it's not the equivalent of the Berlin by Night one. That thing. My god. Oh no.
let me just give you an idea here, right? It is kind of just out there. Vampire Louis Pasteur.
You know, the thing is, I thought he'd be a technocrat mage.
He's not. He's a vampire.
Anyway, that's a problem for next week, Adam.
Yeah, what we'll do is a problem for next week,
Adam. Adam.
Or 3 weeks, or who knows, but we'll try to be more consistent.
Oh no, it was just a brief hiatus. It was just a really brief hiatus. Like I said, next week, Autistic Analysis. I'll actually set up a voting poll. Maybe not tonight, but definitely sometime tomorrow or the next day.
Yeah.
And again, I have fun. Have a good night, everyone.
Yeah, have a good night. I hope you all enjoyed our way overly long ramble about this, but that's what this podcast is about almost.
Come back next week, you all, for the next game. Or whatever. I don't know.